So, excuse me, can you make sure we get a picture of all them signs? That's good stuff. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience. This is a hearing conducted by the Committee on Public Safety to deal with resolution number 3130880 to determine the ICE detainer policy. And we are thankful today to see democracy at its finest and have full participation. Because we have so many people to testify, I'm going to give a brief opening and then turn it over to the bill sponsors for a comment, and then we're going to get this show on the road. Yesterday, I convened a committee hearing to investigate instances of notarial fraud, which was an eye-opening process that was introduced by my colleague, Councilman O'Brien here. And it is truly befitting that today, Councilman Kenney's resolution on ICE issues is here. It's a two-punch combination that I think is having impact even within our administration as we speak. So we look forward to the testimony today. I have a large population of immigrants in my district, in the 4th District, and this issue touches home for them. So this discussion is not only national but local, and it is truly appropriate to have it in these chambers today. And I want to thank my colleagues, both Kenney, Councilman Kenney, Councilwoman Sanchez, who has been a long-time advocate for these issues to be heard, and Councilman O'Brien, who has made a difference with the notarial fraud hearings. So with that, I'd like to hear from Councilman Kenney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for the opportunity to have this hearing to continue the discussion relative to this activity as it relates to our citizens who live in the city of Philadelphia. One of the most pernicious acts of Congress in the history of the United States was the Fugitive Slave Act. It allowed slave owners from the South to come up in northern cities and point out people on the street and say that that was my property. Those folks would be hauled before a magistrate or hauled before a commissioner, and the commissioner would decide whether or not to give that person over to the slave owners. Actually, the commissioner was paid $20 to fine for the slave owners and $10 to fine for the individual citizen. And in many ways, although it doesn't involve slavery, it angers me that a portion of our government at the federal level can walk into a police station or into the roundhouse and point to somebody and say, we want them detained, we want them imprisoned, we want them sent to a federal facility without charges, we want them hauled off away from their family, away from their community, away from their friends. We're not going to charge them with anything, we just want them detained. We want to hold their body because we can. And in some ways, it's almost akin to that pernicious act that allowed people to abscond people off the street and to hold them against their will. This city does not get a lot of help from the federal government in many, many areas, including education and other things. We should not be doing their job. We should not be incurring costs to do something that they want to do. If they want to do it, they have a method and way to go and do it. They can go through the normal legal procedures and accomplish what they want to accomplish if they're in fact correct on the law. We should not be doing their job. And when two young Mexican kids get in a fist fight in South Philadelphia, and they both get hauled off to the 4th District or 3rd District, and an ICE agent's waiting in the lobby, something's wrong with that, because that's not our job. When ICE agents haul a Chinese woman pregnant with twins to the back of the 15th and Spring Garden office, put her in a van, drive her to JFK Airport, drag her through the airport with no money and no identification, while her husband and 2 children, American-born, wait in the lobby of that very same office. That's a disgrace. And this is not what our country is about. Our country is about Our country is about protecting people, about doing what is right, and abiding by the law. And I understand the administration may have an announcement for us here today, or a modified announcement of something they've announced already, and I applaud them for their position on this particular issue. We are not federal agents. Let the federal agents do what they are supposed to do because they get paid to do it. Our police are here to protect us, not to scare us, and that's what it's going to be going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Before we hear from the co-sponsor, Councilwoman Sanchez, I'd like for the record to acknowledge Councilman Greenlee, Councilman O'Brien, Councilman Kenney, Councilwoman Blackwell, who is also an advocate and has a strong understanding because of the population that's in her district. And I would like to hear from Councilwoman Blackwell first, if you would like to, and then Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you. Good morning. Again, as always, I thank God for the privilege of having these important discussions here this morning. We are very happy that our city has begun to increase its population, in part due to in Census 2012, we had 11.8 people who reported being born and who came here during 2012. We also want to review the census data and the application and the groups who come, because we have some questions about them creating all the minority groups who are in this country. Some 20 years ago, we started Echoes of Africa, and in 2005, we created the Mayor's Commission on African and Caribbean Immigrant Affairs. We are very happy to work with these organizations and all of you to help Philadelphia to be the welcoming place it should be. We're happy, as we said yesterday, for the establishment of the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Building on 41st and Poughton Streets in my area. We believe this will help a lot of people get assistance they needed, since it's close in the neighborhoods and easy to get to. It's right there at 41st and Market. Thank you, thank you. In spite of all the positives we see, we've heard heart-wrenching stories from constituents and family members who have been detained due to this issue of ICE and untimely reported, leaving children and families behind with no one to provide from them. It is these conversations that led Councilman Kenney and I to call for this hearing through introduction of this resolution. Another motivating factor is obviously that we believe that we have a sacred obligation to engage all people in all steps of creating policies that work for us all. Today, we will have hearings for the Mayor's Commission on African and Caribbean Immigrant Affairs, as we do every second Wednesday, across the hall in room 408 City Hall. We are committed to doing our part to make sure that everyone in this country has a free chance. I'm tired of the terrible stories that we hear about people suffering. It's so hard to believe that in 2014, in the United States of America, we have these problems. So we want to say we are with you. We look forward to these discussions, extend our hands in friendship and partnership to do what we can to change the policies that exist for people who come in Philadelphia and beyond. Thank you very much. Thank you.
People are very passionate about this issue, I see. But as other people speak, we are going to often agree, and when we disagree, we will do so in a decorum that allows other people the freedom of speech. I want to acknowledge my colleague, Councilman Squilla, has joined us, and now I'd like to recognize Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. I want to personally thank Councilman Kenney, who's been a long proponent of immigration issues in the city of Philadelphia, and Councilwoman Blackwell, who, as you heard through her leadership, and the African American Caribbean Affairs Council, many would say really leading the nation for an issue that unfortunately we see. Hopefully this year we'll see some solution up in Congress. But one thing has been clear in council: this council has not only been open, but has really led to what has been an important dialogue around what cities can do until Congress deals with comprehensive reform. I want to recognize the immigrant community members who will come here and testify this morning and talk about how immigration enforcement and deportation has affected them, has separated their families, and ultimately has made the city less safe. The testimony in this hearing are important to us because it's important that we record these stories and that we learn from the experts and the serious legal and constitutional issues involved. I do want to recognize the mayor and his Office of Multicultural Immigrant Affairs for showing that they're listening and they deeply do care and wanting to work on a policy that is broader and more protective of our families and our core values as a city. I want to stress that this new policy that is being proposed is huge. It's historic. It's a historic step for a major city like Philadelphia to go on the map and say that we want our city to be safe, and we will not allow the federal government to come in and use their immigration policies or lack thereof as a mechanism to separate, divide our communities, and make our city unsafe. But we also want to make sure that not having comprehensive immigration reform, that this city and its implementation of what will be a historic new policy, that we ensure that the city is not going to be sharing any information with ICE, and that includes revisiting our current policies with secure communities and our PAR system. I want to thank my council colleagues and look forward as we move forward in the rest of this spring as we address municipal ID and others. We're going to send a strong message today that this city, this council, and this mayor are going to take a strong leadership position since the federal government has failed to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So we have 18 people to testify today, and we want to hear from all of them because I think all of them have an opinion, and we want them heard. What I will say to you, the only rules are that we will be polite, as polite as we can be. We will be enthusiastic when we need to be, but we can be as brief as you'd like to be and summarize some of your testimony if you would like to do so. So with that, will the clerk please read the title of the resolution and the first group to testify?
Resolution 130880, authorizing the Committee of Public Safety to hold public hearings to examine the working relationship between the City of Philadelphia, its agencies, including the Police Department, and the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, to determine the impact on Philadelphia's immigrant community and whether this information sharing relationship should be terminated. Our first panel is Tamara Jimenez, Cristobal Valencia, Chioma Azizi.
Thank you and welcome to the hearings. So bring the mic close to you, state your name for the record, the organization you're with, and begin your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Tamara Jimenez, and I am a board member of New Sanctuary Movement of Philadelphia. I am originally from Nicaragua. My mother and I came to the United States 11 years ago. I am the manager of my mother's business located in North Philadelphia. I live in constant fear that my mother, who is undocumented, could be at the wrong place at the wrong time. For example, if there's a robbery at the bakery, my mother would think twice before calling the police because she will not like to get in touch with the police. And this is something that we live in a daily basis. trying not to get involved with the police because of our immigration status. In our business, we hear stories from our customers whose family members have gotten an ICE hold in deportation proceedings. And it's disheartening to see the pain, the fear that ICE holds caused by splitting families apart through deportation. ICE relies on Philadelphia law enforcement to find immigrants to deport. This makes it dangerous for immigrants, documented or undocumented, to seek police assistance. ICE holds a request from the Federal Deportation Office to local Philadelphia law enforcement. The request is to hold people who otherwise be released. This hold is up to 48 hours, so immigrants can take custody of the body for deportation. ICE holds can be issued at any point during a criminal case, during an arrest, during a bail hearing, during a court case, during a prison sentence, or while the person is on probation or parole. Therefore, these people are getting double punished for one crime. The city of Philadelphia does not have to comply with this hold request because they are not criminal warrants. They are not reviewed by a judge, and they are not mandatory. The city does not have to comply. Ending ICE holds and for all will not interfere with the criminal system that our city already has in place. The connection between immigration and the Philadelphia local police is causing fear and mistrust to the agency that is supposed to protect everyone. We, the immigrant community, see the Philadelphia police as a wing of deportation and therefore guilty of family separation. This causes fear not only for the adults, but also for the kids who unfortunately understand and live the fear on a daily basis. Fear of losing one or both of their parents. Immigrant communities don't feel safe and protected by terrorized of the police. ICE holds violate our moral, ethical, and faith values of honoring the justice and dignity of each individual, regardless of immigration status, economic status, country of origin, marital status, gender identity, and history with the criminal legal system. This is about families. This is about human dignity. If Philadelphia shared those values, that should protect our community by ending ICE holds for all. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We will wait to hear all of the panelists before we interact and have questions. So pull the mic to you, state your name for the record, and please begin your testimony.
I just want to say that Cristobal is going to speak, but I'll be translating.
That's fine.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Cristóbal Valencia.
Hello, my name is Cristobal Valencia.
Soy un miembro de Juntos y estoy aquí para hablar en nombre de nuestra organización, Juntos, la cual es parte de la Red de Unidad Familiar de Filadelfia.
And I am a member of Juntos. I am here today to speak on behalf of Juntos, the organization, and Juntos as part of the Philadelphia Family Unity Network.
Estoy aquí para hablar acerca de las detenciones hechas en nombre de ICE, la cual es la agencia que se encarga de hacer cumplir las leyes de aduanas y migración.
And I'm here speaking on the subject of the City of Philadelphia's use of ICE holds.
Nosotros en la coalición de PIFAN le presentamos 4 demandas.
We as PFUN are asking for 4 things.
Demanda número 1 es terminar con todas las detenciones en nombre de ICE dentro del sistema criminal de Filadelfia.
Number 1, we want to end the use of all ICE holds in the Philadelphia criminal system.
Número 2 es terminar con el acceso de agentes de ICE a individuos que se encuentren bajo la custodia de la ciudad de Filadelfia para interrogarlos sobre cuestiones relativas a las leyes de inmigración.
We want to end the access of Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents to interrogate individuals held in Philadelphia city custody for the enforcement of civil immigration laws.
3, prohibirle a todo el personal oficial que se encarga de hacer cumplir las leyes en este municipio que haga cualquier pregunta relativa al estatus migratorio de cualquier persona.
Number 3, we want to prohibit all municipal law enforcement personnel from asking about immigration status.
4, asegurarse que exista una participación comunitaria auténtica en la creación, implementación y revisión de cualquier política que regule la relación entre la policía y las autoridades migratorias.
And number 4, we want to ensure meaningful community engagement and review in the creation and implementation of any policy regarding the relationship between police and immigration authorities.
Todos sabemos que la principal función de ICE es aplicar la ley federal de inmigración y deportar a la gente.
We all know that ICE's top priority is to enforce federal immigration laws and subsequently deport people.
Por esto, creemos que la misión de ICE no tiene nada que ver con los agentes de la policía, cuya labor es ver que se cumplan las leyes locales.
Knowing this, we do not believe that local law enforcement has any role in ICE's mission. It is not the Philadelphia Police Department's job to do ICE's work.
No le corresponde al Departamento de Policía de la Ciudad de Filadelfia hacer el trabajo de ICE. Consecuentemente, no es apropiado que la ciudad utilice fondos municipales para darle acceso a los agentes de ICE a los espacios citados para que lleven a cabo investigaciones federales.
It is along these same lines that we believe it is not the city's role to use municipal resources to provide ICE agents access to city spaces to conduct federal investigation.
Identificar voluntariamente a miembros de nuestra comunidad para ser deportados mediante el uso de detenciones en nombre de ICE o permitirles la entrada a edificios de agentes que vigilan el orden público en la ciudad produce desconfianza entre la comunidad inmigrante y la policía urbana, además de violar nuestra creencia en la dignidad humana y el derecho de tener una segunda oportunidad.
Volunteering our community members for deportation through the use of ICE holds or allowing ICE agents within local law enforcement buildings to enforce immigration law only breeds distrust between the immigrant community and city police and violates our belief in human dignity and the right to a second chance.
De hecho, la práctica de detenciones de ICE en Filadelfia es una de las razones por las que muchos miembros de la comunidad le tienen miedo a la policía. No es solamente lo que otros miembros de Juntos y yo hemos experimentado, sino es un hecho documentado en investigaciones académicas.
The enforcement of ICE holds here in Philadelphia is one of the reasons that community members actually fear their local police. This is not just what I and other members of Juntos have experienced, but a fact that has been documented with research.
El reporte de la Universidad de Illinois en Chicago, titulado Comunidades Inseguras. ¿Cómo ven los latinos la participación de la policía en la aplicación de la ley de inmigración? Dice que 4 de cada 10 latinos prefieren no reportar ni un crimen y el 45% de los latinos opta por no ofrecer información sobre crímenes porque ya saben que esa información será compartida con agentes y le causará una deportación.
According to the University of Illinois in Chicago, in their report, Insecure Communities, Latino Perceptions of Police Involvement in Immigration Enforcement, more than 4 in 10 Latinos are less likely to report a crime, and 45% of Latinos are less likely to volunteer information about crimes because they know that information is being shared with deportation agents.
La política que la oficina del alcalde propone sí disminuiría las detenciones de algunos individuos, pero continuaría la práctica de detenciones en nombre de ICE y de referir voluntariamente a personas que son parte de nuestra comunidad para tener una deportación.
The policy that the mayor's office is proposing, while it would do away with some ICE holds, would continue to use ICE holds and volunteer some members of our community for deportation.
El continuar con las detenciones en nombre de ICE es igual que emitir un mensaje a la comunidad inmigrante de que no es seguro llamar a la policía. Vimos esto en la manera en que se llevó a cabo la orden ejecutiva del alcalde en el año 2009 y que a pesar de que dicha orden le prohíbe a la policía hacer cualquier pregunta relacionada con el estatus migratorio de la persona, en ciertas situaciones parece que la política no ha quedado clara y que algunos miembros de la policía continúan haciendo este tipo de preguntas.
Continuing to use any ICE holds sends a message to immigrant communities that it is not safe to call the police. We have seen this in how the mayor's executive order from 2009 was put into practice. Although it prohibits police from asking immigration questions in certain situations, the policy is not clear, and police continue to ask immigration questions. In these situations, the police are doing the job of the deportation officers, and the distrust in the community continues.
En esas situaciones, los miembros del cuerpo policíaco están realizando tareas que les corresponden a los oficiales de deportación, fomentando la desconfianza de la comunidad. Porque existe una historia de desconfianza en las comunidades inmigrantes, necesitamos un mandato claro que separe a la policía local de las autoridades de deportación. No necesitamos una política que establezca líneas de separación entre unos y otros miembros de la comunidad, sometiendo una parte de ella al peligro de ser deportada.
Because of this history of mistrust in immigrant communities, we need a clear mandate that separates local police from deportation authorities. We do not need a policy that draws lines in our community and still subjects part of our community to deportation.
La única forma de emitir un mensaje muy claro de que la ciudad no enviará voluntariamente a ningún miembro de nuestra comunidad a ser deportado es parar la práctica de detenciones en nombre de ICE.
The only way to send a clear message that the city will not volunteer our community members for deportation is to end the use of all ICE holds.
En el último análisis, ni una sola detención a nombre de ICE debiera ser aceptada por la ciudad de Filadelfia, ya que su único propósito es deportar inmigrantes y dividir familias. Independientemente de nuestro estatus migratorio, todos somos seres humanos con derechos, y en el momento en que se acepta una detención en nombre de ICE, se viola el derecho de una o de un inmigrante al proceso jurídico.
Ultimately, not a single ICE hold should be honored in the city of Philadelphia because their only purpose is to deport immigrants and to separate families. We are all human beings with rights, regardless of our status. And when ICE holds are in place, you are taking away an immigrant's right to due process.
Ha llegado el momento en que la ciudad de Filadelfia debe levantarse en la defensa de los derechos humanos, parar las deportaciones y descontinuar la práctica de detenciones en nombre de ICE.
That is why we are asking the mayor to hold further action until he himself has met with the Philadelphia Family Unity Network to discuss with community our proposed executive order language. Now, Mayor Nutter, is the time for Philadelphia to stand up for human rights, stand up against deportations, and end the enforcement of all ICE holds. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to first thank you for your testimony and also the interpretation for those who may be home who have language barriers that can understand what your comments are. Secondly, we've had in the last year 3 kind of related hearings. The first one was human trafficking. The second one was notarial fraud, and today is ICE. But there's been a common thread, and the fear of deportation, the fear of being arrested for bringing forth criminal acts has been the common thread. And if I heard nothing else, I've heard that part of it that has been a deterrent to people coming forth and being witnesses who have been victimized by crime. And secondly, and as importantly, the use of these nefarious individuals as a threat to make people do things that they don't want to do. So we're hearing you loud and clear, and I wanted to know if there are any members of the committee that have questions for this panel of witnesses to testify. Are there any questions? Seeing none, again, thank you for your important testimony. It is going on the record, and it is important to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Somebody else is supposed to speak? Somebody else. We need somebody else.
Our next panel. Margaret Weston Adelsberger, John Ryan.
No, that's not that. Oh, wait a minute. So, As we hear from other people, my colleague pointed out an important point. A part of this country's greatness is we allow everybody to speak, and we hold everyone accountable for their words. And so everybody has a right to speak, but everybody doesn't have a right to the facts. So let's hear people out. Thank you for your patience. Please have a seat. Bring the mic to you. State your name and the organization, if there is one that you're affiliated with.
My name is John Ryan, and I'm here today with PA for ICE. Okay? It's just a one-page statement. The recent history of Western civilization shows that usurpers of a peaceable existing state almost always apply the same methods when they attempt to take control by using the law for their own advantage. These methods, attributed to Marxist socialist Antonio Gramsci, target Judeo-Christian values, the family, schools, unions, politics, and popular trust in the existing government. Karl Boggs, the author of Gramsci's Marxism, outlined 10 steps to achieve a progressive socialist Marxist civil society in America. You change the popular consensus, you destroy Christianity, the traditional family and existing social mores, you transform the culture, install a radical left mind control, attain political power, impose strict control of the military and law enforcement, restrict freedom, socialize the economy, erase American sovereignty, and embrace a world without borders. It appears we are well on the way to fulfilling Gramsci's dream. Unfortunately, we still have laws on the books we can use to resist this hidden effort to transform us into a Marxist socialist state. I do concede the point, those laws are useless if our elected officials continue to pretend they do not exist. Illegal aliens and those who support and profit from their presence should be reminded that Federal Law Title 8, Section 1324 U.S. Code still exists, and it stipulates that aiding, abetting, encouraging, harboring, transporting, and hiring illegal aliens is a felony. When our elected representatives at any level yield to requests for more and more concessions by leftist-based human rights groups, they are aiding and abetting the transformation of our nation into a clone of the lawless and corrupt countries many illegal aliens left behind. When our elected representatives at any level yield to demands that weaken the laws in place to protect the citizens who elected them, those elected representatives have chosen to ignore their sworn oath and have turned their backs on their constituents. Accommodating those who violate our laws only encourage more lawlessness. It also marks those charged with defending the rule of law, but who have chosen to abandon their duty, even incrementally, with the same stain of treachery as those conspiring against it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony.
My name is Margaret.
Can you pull the mic to you, ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good morning.
My name is Margaret Weston Adelsberger. I'm also with PA for ICE. That's Pennsylvanians for Immigration Control and Enforcement. I have 4 questions. I'm going to preface the questions with a comment. The U.S. Senate recently passed S-744, a comprehensive immigration reform bill. According to the New Sanctuary Movement website, we find the following statements. We, the New Sanctuary Movement, support the pathway to citizenship, but comprehensive immigration reform must provide citizenship without insurmountable barriers listed in the Senate plan. For example, language requirements, background checks, and fines that make it impossible to become citizens. We, the New Sanctuary Movement, reject the trigger mechanisms whereby a pathway to legal status for undocumented immigrants could only be opened after additional border security measures are put in place. We, the New Sanctuary Movement, call for an end to unjust enforcement programs. We also call for the end of the detention system. We, the New Sanctuary Movement, are concerned over the inclusion of a national E-Verify system. We, the New Sanctuary Movement, call for an immediate end to deportations. Therefore, we, the New Sanctuary Movement, call for a comprehensive immigration reform that is inclusive of all people, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, age, education, level, language, criminal history, without criminal history, economic status, and immigration status. Question: do all the members of City Council agree with the statements made by the New Sanctuary Movement? Do all members of City Council and all of the New Sanctuary Movement reject the sovereignty of the United States? Do all advocate open borders without any restrictions? Do all reject the naturalization test, which requires reading, writing, and understanding English? Do all reject the oath of citizenship, whereby an immigrant swears that he or she will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic? These are questions that have to be asked, people. My second question is, according to Nicole Ligerman, spokesman for the New Sanctuary Movement of Philadelphia, Philadelphia participates in several immigration enforcement programs, some of which are federally mandated and others, such as ICE holds, that are non-mandatory requests for assistance. Question: could someone explain the difference between federally mandated immigration enforcement programs and non-mandatory requests for assistance? I don't understand the difference. According to a press release put out by Juntos and the New Sanctuary Movement, the collaboration between the Philadelphia Police Department and Immigration and Customs Enforcement has resulted in mass deportations and the separation of Philadelphia families. Questions: since mass deportation is a collective term, could someone verify through ICE exactly how many deportations have occurred in the Philadelphia area, the name of deportees, dates of deportation, and the reason for the deportation? The third thing, Councilwoman Sanchez recently introduced a bill that would supply all Philadelphia residents with a municipal ID. It was stated that having a municipal ID would allow many to have access to critical services without fear of deportation. What kind of critical services would be accessible with this ID? Would all residents be required to carry this ID? How would this be enacted? Who would be paying for the cost of implementing the service? As I said before, these questions all have to be addressed before you could ever do away with the Secure Communities program that we now have in place. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We're going to allow the panel to give their testimony, and then any members of the committee who wish to respond may or may not do so.
Thank you.
I don't know. My name is Vincent Weston. I don't have a written statement here, but I'm just amazed that we're having this hearing because these people break our laws. They come in here and want our law enforcement people to break laws. And I don't understand that. These people take, our law enforcement officers take a vow to uphold the laws. And these people want the law enforcement officers to break the law. I don't understand that. Why would any of you people on the committee go along with that thing that where you want our law enforcement officers to break the law? Do we pick and choose what laws we're going to enforce? What if everybody in the Philadelphia area stops paying taxes?
Well, if anyone would like to respond, we'd like to have a response, and if not, then thank you very much for hearing us.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
The only thing I will say, whenever people say all, whenever people say everyone, and particularly when you say you people, that's usually wrong. And that's been my experience. So,
Sir, I'm not politically correct.
you asked for.
And when I say you people, I mean the illegals.
Sir, you asked for my response, and I'm going to give it to you.
All right.
I want you to know that when I took an oath to be a councilman in the city of Philadelphia, nowhere did it says defend the Constitution, defend the Pennsylvania Constitution and the city charter. Nowhere in there did it say anything about deportation, checking IDs, or any of those kinds of things that belong at the federal government level. So I'd like to stay within my wheelhouse of information, and we have enough pressing issues at the city level, pressing issues that our police department has to deal with every day, than for me to deal with another department's issue. So I appreciate your comment, and the fact that we live in a great nation allows you to say whatever you want. And we appreciate you coming down and giving that testimony. Your questions will be referred to the departments that have an appropriate response for them. Here in this chamber, we are looking at how we interact and whether our time can be better used defending the things that we can and not doing the things that other government agencies should. So I thank you again for your testimony.
Could I ask a question, please?
You can ask the question.
Okay. When you took the oath of office, was it to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. One of the Section 4, Article 4 of the Constitution is that we're to be protected against any kind of invasion of our country. You have that in the Article 4 of the Constitution. So that's part of the oath of office that you took. If you don't know...
That's a liberal interpretation, but I'll listen to...
It's
Councilman
not. No,
Kenney.
it is not a liberal interpretation.
I just have a comment, and I must be getting older, because not too long ago I'd be really angry, and now I just feel compassion.
You know, I feel compassion for you, too.
I really do. I'm not angry. I'm not even going to engage you and be angry. I feel compassionate for you because it's just really, it's sad.
You know what? It's sad about you because you're the one that was after Joey Vento, too, and Joey Vento just asked, can people speak English when they order? So you have no, I don't have compassion for you.
I have compassion for you.
I really don't.
Because you can't go through life hating.
I don't hate at all.
No.
I love my country.
I love my country, too.
And I don't want my country to...
You can't go through life hating. And I will tell you something. If you look at my own history of my family in this country, when the Irish came here in the 1840s because they were starved out of England, no one wanted them here. There were signs on businesses that said, no Irish need apply. They wanted us out of the country. They told us to go back where we came from. And let me tell you something. The only people that can't go back where they came from are Native American Indians. They're the only people.
Sir, may we reply?
The problem with that, sir, is you didn't have any welfare to fall back on back then.
You know, along with that, my mother came from the other side, too, as an immigrant. She came from another side as an immigrant, too.
More compassion for the people sitting behind you, because your mother and her people were discriminated against, too. So have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
You know what?
for your
We're not
testimony.
discriminating against anyone. No, we're not.
Sir?
These people are breaking our laws. When I say these people, illegal immigrants, and you people don't want to do anything about it.
All right, thank you so much for your testimony, and have a good day.
Thank you for hearing us.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Will the
And God bless
clerk-
America.
God bless America.
Uphold the law.
Will the clerk please read the names of the next people to testify?
Chioma Aziz, Neroen Chin, Alejandro Mota, Teresa Flores.
Thank you all for your patience. And please bring the mic to you, and will the first person state their name and begin their testimony.
Good morning.
morning.
My name is Chioma Aziz. It's my sincere pleasure to be here with all of you this morning to talk about issues that are a part of my daily work as staff attorney and as a community advocate. Today I'm here along with my colleague who will be testifying a little bit later to contribute to this discussion and to offer the perspective from the African and the Caribbean immigrant community and, advocate that the city decline to engage in information sharing with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, particularly because of the legal and human rights abuses that I have been been informed of and witnessing, and because of the lack of transparency by ICE. I'm here on behalf of the African Cultural Alliance of North America, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization located in Southwest Philadelphia. It's in the 3rd Council District, which is the district of the esteemed Mrs. Councilwoman Jenny Blackwell. Our mission is to assist African and Caribbean immigrants in their resettlement in the United States with a special focus on women, children, and the elderly. There are few, if any, organizations in the United States, in the whole country, that are like ACANA because of the broad range of services that we provide, not just social services, arts and culture activities, but immigration help. And we have, because of that, we have become a hub for African and Caribbean immigrants in this country and in this city because of the issues and the range of issues that we're able to handle. Because of ACANA's unique role in the African and Caribbean community in Philadelphia, we are attracting more and more service seekers every year. We attract people from as far away as California, from Georgia, from North Carolina. In 2010, we served a little over 1,000 service seekers. More than 70% of those people were seeking immigration assistance. In 2013, our numbers ballooned to 1,300 people. Again, most of them coming to seek assistance with immigration matters. So it's a big portion of our work at ACANA. And these numbers that I'm giving you don't include the letters that we receive from detained individuals, people who are in detention facilities, not just locally, but from as far away as Nevada, anywhere you can imagine in the country. While our prime focus at ACANA is not only immigration work, we are noting that we are handling a growing number of matters with immigrants who are in particular finding themselves in detention and facing deportation. While many of these individuals are facing this because of criminal contact, some of them are folks who just have been found out, essentially. But despite this, they are treated just like any other, like a criminal, basically, like a violent criminal. As some people may be aware, if you are following the debate, many people have been putting a lot of pressure and criticism against the president because of the high numbers of deportation. Rates have been going up since he took office. In 2012 alone, this country deported more people than they ever have in the entire history of this country, at over 400,000 people, essentially, which this information is provided on DHS's Department of Homeland Security's website. For community advocates such as ACANA, these increased deportation figures have revealed the issues that I mentioned today, that there are legal and human rights abuses that are going on that are being committed by ICE, and there is a strong lack of transparency and communication between ICE and community advocates and immigrants and their families. And for those reasons alone, you know, we argue that there's no need for the city to do the federal government's work when the federal government agency is not itself willing to communicate and cooperate with local organizations. As I mentioned, some of you are aware that the president has been receiving a lot of pressure because of the number of deportations, and his argument is always that he has no control over the number of deportations and what ICE does. While that may sound hard to believe for some people, there is some truth to that. And the reason why I say that is because of the way in which ICE has been operating from our perspective, from what we have been seeing at ACANA. ICE is a sub-agency of Department of Homeland Security, just like other agencies. But what we have noted is that ICE operates virtually independent with no checks and balances. It comes in the night, it comes unannounced, they detain you however long they want to, they set bond without any kind of information or basis. And really, the methods under which we can challenge that as advocates are very, very difficult. Essentially, ICE is acting at its own whim, even if it means, in some cases, bending or breaking the law. Let me give you an example, an actual case example of what I've experienced. Last year, we worked with a young African immigrant facing deportation. Despite all of our efforts to request relief, the judge denied our application and instead granted what's called voluntary departure. Basically, what voluntary departure means is instead of sending you home in chains, essentially. The judge will give you an opportunity under a certain period of time to leave on your own accord, to spend time with your family, find your own plane ticket, and leave when you are able. So in this instance, our client was granted voluntary departure, which we saw as a small victory, because at least he would be able to be home before he had to leave. Unfortunately for this young man, however, even though he was granted voluntary departure, when I went to communicate with the ICE officials to discuss with them how we would arrange the release, they told us that the only way he would be released is if he produced a passport, a one-way ticket back to his home country with no stopovers in Europe, and he was released directly to the airport. In other words, they were directly violating their own rules and laws as to how voluntary departure was supposed to be overseen. Of course, as advocates, we fought. We appealed this decision. We requested bond. The bond was issued, but it was set at $15,000, which this young man's family just had no way to pay such a bond. Today, he still remains in jail. He's been in jail for over a year. And his crime was a nonviolent crime. Nonviolent, didn't involve drugs, didn't involve alcohol. But ICE has essentially violated the law, flouted the law just for their own whim to hold this young man. That's, these are the cases that we are seeing. The fact of the matter is, ICE does not always play fair, nor does it feel the need to justify or explain the legality of its own actions, which we as immigrant advocates, we find it extremely, extremely troubling. It's, in other instances, as I mentioned, we received letters from detained individuals who are claiming that they've been beaten, who are claiming that they've witnessed other people being beaten in detention. We also received a letter from a young man who claimed that while he was going through his deportation process, ICE attempted to obtain a fraudulent travel document and send him home to a country where he has no ties, citizenship, or relationship whatsoever. Now, of course, these are all allegations and they all must be investigated. But based on the work that we are doing, we are noting that there are very, very troubling activities going on with ICE. And the fact of the matter is, because ICE acts on its own whim and is unsupervised, it's doing these things and it's getting away with it. Given the fact that ICE is operating with seemingly no checks and balances, it's then no surprise for us that immigration advocates such as Akana have also had trouble communicating with the agency or getting any information from the agency. Unlike other sub-agencies under DHS who have community relations departments, the local ICE office in Philadelphia has no dedicated community relations office. If anyone here has tried to call ICE and get any information, you understand what I'm talking about. They don't share information, they don't give you anything. They'll just hang up the phone on you and tell you to wait in the mail for a letter if you get it. Akana personally has on several occasions tried to outreach to the ICE director, Thomas Decker, on several occasions, both by mail and by phone, to request a meeting to discuss some of the things that we're talking about today. All of our efforts have been rebuffed. Similarly, we have reached out to offices in Washington for the same thing. Nothing. So, I just want to summarize and say that all of us, I'm sure, here believe in making our communities and neighborhoods safe. We all agree in abiding by the law. But if ICE, who is supposed to keep us safe, is itself breaking the law, and is itself refusing to work with the very community that it says it wants to protect, it just doesn't make sense for us to then want to share information and work with them when they're not willing to do the same for us. I, along with my colleague who will speak later, Mr. Vopi Jabate, ask that you put our community first and demand greater transparency and cooperation from ICE and say no to this Secure Communities Sharing Information project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And as we have in other panels, we're going to wait to hear from everyone before we make comment. And again, let me reiterate, feel free to summarize your testimony. Even though it is very important, you can submit the testimony in writing and then take hot points out of it that you want to underscore. So thank you very much. Okay, so also those in the balcony, we did open up the balcony because of the demand of people wanting to hear in person these hearings. And you are welcome to be here, but as the people testify, we need to keep it down so we can hear them. All right? Thank you all for your cooperation. Please begin your testimony, sir.
Yes, sir. First of all, I want to thank the community and members of City Council and the administration for, being here today. I want to start out with this quote by Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln once said, "I've always found that mercy bears richer fruits than strict justice." My name is Naren Chen. I am a community organizer with One Love Movement. I also chair the board of the Philadelphia Northwest Neighborhood Sub-Advisory Committee on top of my full-time job. I am also a refugee from Cambodia. I have a felony conviction. I am a U.S. citizen, and I did not have to face the consequence of deportation. But I have supported my friends and their families and other community members as they have gone through the deportation process. As refugees, we experience the consequence of ICE hold every single day. Our organization, One Love Movement, which is a national network of Asian American grassroots organizers, started out because there was a deportation crisis in our community in Philadelphia back in 2010. Several members of our community who came to the U.S. as refugees were rounded up for deportation for offense that they have committed when they were teenagers. They had already served their time, left prison, reformed themselves. They were given back to the community. They had built families, bought homes, and started business. And all of that was taken away from them because they weren't citizens and they had criminal records. Even though they had transformed themselves, they were still subject to a second level of punishment for mistakes they have made in the past. I want to give you some context about what we experienced in our community growing up when my community was resettled here from Cambodia. We were living in extremely poor neighborhoods where day to day the only thing we saw was drugs, gangs, and racial conflict. I myself is from Philadelphia, a Logan section of Philadelphia. The people that we met when we were resettled here did not understand us, and we were bullied. Our parents were still assimilating and adjusting to American culture, facing their own trauma of having survived a genocide, and they didn't know how to support us as we were going through the school system. We didn't know how to communicate with our parents about what we were going through, and even if we did, they had to work 15, 16 hours per day to support us, and were not able to be home with us all the time. This city was not prepared for refugee resettlement and to help us apply for benefits we needed. Even the basic things like health care, language access, and transportation were a huge barrier to us. Everywhere we went, we were harassed and bullied, and there was nowhere for us to go for support. Gangs started because kids wanted to protect themselves, and they had nowhere else to turn for support. From my own experience, we were getting beaten up in school for speaking a different language and having a different cultural background. I remember my uncle walking me to his kids, with his kids to school, and he himself was attacked and knocked out cold. No one acknowledged what was happening to us. Once gangs started, kids started using drugs like many other urban communities in our nation today. The focus of the community shifted from taking care of each other to attacking each other and even killing each other. This is how our members of our community started getting arrested. The lack of support in school was a huge part of how we ended up getting in trouble. Because of the gang involvement, my friends ended up being charged with adult crimes, even though they were teenagers, because they were not citizens. They were given a double punishment when they left prison and then had to face deportation. Why did I choose to do this work? I ask myself this question every single day. Why did I get to stay and my friends do not? Why are they treated differently? Where's the second chance in that? Where is the opportunity to turn their lives around? This is why I do this work. For my community, we came here as refugees to escape persecution, to look for a safe home, like the people who colonized this area did 100 years ago. We came here for a second chance. People leaving prison deserve that second chance. We can't ask our community to start trusting the police if they have to fear deportation every time. In order for the city of Philadelphia to grow and prosper, second chance has to be applied and should be a philosophy, it should be a way of life. This is why I am asking the mayor to adopt an order putting an end to ICE holds in Philadelphia. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. I would like also, for the record, to state that Councilwoman Marion Tasco has joined the committee. Would you have any comment? No? All right. Will the next person prepared to testify bring the mic to them and state your name and affiliation and begin your testimony?
Buenos días, mi nombre es Alejandra Mota y pertenezco al Nuevo Movimiento Santuario de Filadelfia.
Good morning, my name is Alejandra Mota and I belong to the New Sanctuary Movement of Philadelphia.
He vivido en Filadelfia por 11 años con mi esposo y mis hijos que nacieron aquí en Filadelfia.
I've lived in Philadelphia with my husband and 2 children for 11 years. My children were both born here.
En el año 2010, mi familia y yo fuimos afectados por la conexión entre inmigración y la policía por medio de las retenciones de inmigración ICE holds. La historia es larga, pero trataré de hacerla corta.
In 2010, my family and I were affected by the collaboration between immigration and police through an ICE hold. The story is long, but I'll try to make it short.
Un día como cualquiera, estábamos sentados enfrente de mi casa cuando un hombre pasó corriendo y otro con pistola en mano lo venía persiguiendo.
It was a regular day and I was sitting in front of my house with my family. A man came running by us who was chased by another man with a gun in his hand.
Al ver eso, yo me asusté, corrí con los niños adentro de mi casa, cerré la puerta y mi esposo no alcanzó a entrar.
Seeing this, I became scared and ran inside the house with my kids and closed the door. My husband didn't get into the house in time.
Cuando me asomé por la ventana, vi a mi esposo ensangrentado de pies a cabeza. El hombre que perseguía al primer individuo y como 5 policías lo tenían en el piso con un pie sobre su espalda.
When I looked through the window, I saw my husband bloodied from head to toe next to the man with the gun, as well as 5 police officers. My husband was on the ground with a police officer's foot on his back.
Le habían roto la cabeza pegándole con la pistola. El hombre vestido de civil tenía sangre en las manos. Me gritaba que dónde estaba el hombre que él venía persiguiendo.
His head was split open because an officer had hit him with a gun. They began to leave, and when I looked out the door, I saw that the man with the gun had blood on his hands. He shouted to me, asking where the man who was running had gone.
Yo le decía que no sabía de qué hablaba. Entró a mi casa. Yo le pedí que no gritara porque mis hijos de 3 y 5 años estaban aterrorizados, pero él siguió gritando en inglés.
I told him that I didn't know what he was talking about, and he pushed me and entered our home. I asked him not to scream because my kids, who were just 3 and 5 years old at that time, were terrified, but he kept yelling at me in English.
Hice varios intentos de que no asustara a mis hijos, pero él me empujó. Pasó a la cocina donde estaban ellos, gritando, asustados, y les gritó que se callaran, y me apuntaba con la pistola.
I tried several times to make him stop scaring my kids, but he pushed me again and went into the kitchen. My kids were there, and he continued screaming, scaring them. He pointed the gun at me.
No dejaron que la ambulancia se llevara a mi esposo. Lo pusieron en la patrulla y se lo llevaron.
The police did not let the ambulance take my husband to the hospital, but instead they put him in a police car and took him away.
Intenté irme con ellos porque me preocupaba a mi esposo y me dijeron que no me acercara o fuera al hospital porque me arrestarían.
I tried to go with them because I was concerned about my husband, and they told me that if I went, I would be arrested.
Así ya no supe nada más de él hasta días después que mi esposo logró comunicarse a la iglesia. Lo pusieron en la cárcel de Steed Row, CFCF, No lo dejaron hacer la primera llamada, sino hasta varios días después.
Because of this, I didn't know anything about his whereabouts until days later when my husband was able to communicate with the church. He was put in jail at State Road at CFCF and wasn't allowed to make his one phone call until days later.
Inmediatamente ICE lo puso en retención a ICE Hall. La policía cumplió y lo entregó a inmigración.
Immediately upon being taken into police custody, ICE issued a hold on him. The police complied with that hold and turned my husband over to immigration agents.
A mi esposo lo acusaban de más de 15 cargos, entre ellos atacar a un policía con una arma.
He was charged in criminal court of more than 15 counts, including attacking a policeman with a gun.
De ser hallado culpable, mi esposo enfrentaría 100 años de cárcel. Por supuesto, sería deportado después de su condena.
If he was found guilty, my husband would face 100 years in prison and of course would be deported after serving his sentence.
ICE Hall causó muchos daños en mi familia. Económicamente, los ahorros que teníamos se acabaron. Debimos pedir dinero prestado para poder pelear la deportación y el caso criminal.
The ICE hold caused great harm to my family financially. We spent the savings that we had and needed to borrow money to fight the deportation and criminal cases.
Pérdida de empleo, depresiones. Prácticamente me quedé sola para mantener nuestro hogar y el dinero no alcanzaba.
Our loss of employment and depression also caused a financial strain. This situation left me alone to maintain our home, and we didn't have enough money to do so.
El ICE Hall causó que nuestra familia tuviera que gastar entre $35 y $40,000 porque fuimos víctimas de fraude por parte de abogados inescrupulosos y entre pagar multas y papeleos.
The ICE hold caused our family to spend between $35,000 and $40,000 because we were victims of fraud by unscrupulous lawyers and had to pay fines and paperwork.
La policía y las cárceles locales de Filadelfia le están dando herramientas a inmigración para destruir familias. Para mí es ridículo que se tengan que castigar 2 veces a un ser humano.
Police and local prisons in Philadelphia are giving tools to federal immigration to destroy families. To me, it's ridiculous for one human being to be punished twice.
Primero en el sistema legal de justicia y luego la deportación.
The first punishment is from the criminal justice system, and afterwards it's through deportation.
Al colaborar los ICE Hall no solamente están castigando a la persona culpable o no de cometer un error o crimen. En mi caso, me castigaron también a mí, a mis hijos y a toda mi familia.
By collaborating with ICE holds, the city is not only punishing the person who may or may not have committed a crime, but in my case, I was punished, as were my kids and my entire family.
Y a la comunidad en general, porque al saber lo que la policía le hizo a mi esposo, se sienten con miedo, inseguros y desprotegidos.
Everyone knows what the police did to my husband and feels afraid, insecure, and unprotected.
Gracias al apoyo de mi comunidad y de mi iglesia y del nuevo movimiento santuario, pudimos ganar nuestro caso y probar que mi esposo fue víctima de violencia policial.
Thanks to support from my community, my church, and New Sanctuary Movement, we were able to win our case and prove that my husband was the victim of police violence.
A pesar que mi esposo fue hallado no culpable, él todavía enfrentaba el proceso de deportación porque tenía un ICE hold.
Even after my husband was found not guilty, he was still in deportation because of the ICE hold.
Afortunadamente conseguimos un buen abogado, entonces pudimos ganar el caso y conseguir una visa U, la cual es entregada a personas que son víctimas de crimen. En este caso, él fue víctima de abuso por parte de la policía. Estaba buscando otra persona y por un error suyo, mi familia tuvo que vivir este trauma.
Fortunately, he had a good lawyer and was able to win his case and get a U visa, which is a visa for people who are victims of crimes. In this case, he was a victim of police abuse. The police were looking for another person, and because of their own error, my family had to live through this trauma.
Hago un pedido que se separe inmigración del sistema judicial de la ciudad.
I'm asking that the immigration system and the criminal system are separated in this city.
La solución a lidiar con el crimen no es la deportación. Esta idea que la deportación es la manera de combatir el crimen es ridícula Para mi punto de vista, entonces, pido a la ciudad bloquee los ICE holds para todos sin importar su estatus legal o caso criminal.
The idea that deportation is the way to fight crime is ridiculous from my point of view. I ask that the city block ICE holds for all, regardless of legal status or criminal status.
Todos merecemos una segunda oportunidad. Entendemos el trabajo de la policía, pero no estamos de acuerdo con que la policía actúe como agentes de inmigración y ayude a dar doble castigo deportando a nuestra gente.
Everyone deserves a second chance. We understand that the work of the police, but we cannot agree that the police should act as immigration agents and help serve double punishments by deporting our people.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony. All right. Sometimes I may need an interpreter to understand what that is as well. Will we read the next panel to testify, please?
Michael Resnick, Jennifer Rodriguez. And while they are approaching, I will read this handwritten submitted testimony from Babette Josephs. Dear council members, Maria Canona Sanchez and Curtis Jones, I oppose the ICE programs for all the reasons that Philadelphia citizens gave in testimony. Babette Josephs.
Thank you for your patience.
Not a problem, Councilman. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Jones and members of the Committee on Public Safety. My name is Michael Resnick, Director of Public Safety for the City of Philadelphia. I am joined by Jennifer Rodriguez and Fernando Trevino of the Mayor's Office of Immigrant and Multicultural Affairs. We are here to testify regarding Resolution 130880 introduced by Councilman Kenney. And Councilman, I'm very happy to be able to testify before you on a day when you're not angry. Regarding ICE's limited connection with the United States Immigrant and Custom Enforcement Agency. As early as 2006, the issue of the proper treatment of immigrants, namely undocumented immigrants, was addressed by the Philadelphia Police Department. Police Commissioner's Memo 103 was issued to inform police officers regarding the expected treatment of both legal and undocumented immigrants. This was issued under former Police Commissioner Timoney and was modeled upon a similar policy that had been in effect in New York for some time. The motive behind implementing this policy was to allay the legitimate concerns of legal and undocumented immigrants that accessing city services or calling the police for help could bring their immigration status to the attention of federal authorities. At this time, the department had received information that while the city had various services available to immigrants, very few took advantage of these services because they feared any contact with any city agency, especially the police, might bring their immigration status into question. Undocumented residents should be able to access city services without fear of any reprisal. This is especially important in law enforcement, where we want to encourage victims and witnesses to come forward, report crime, and participate in the criminal justice process. Otherwise, entire segments of the population remain crime victims or potential crime victims because they are too afraid to come to the authorities for assistance. Aware of the fear and apprehension that existed in the immigrant communities in the city, Mayor Nutter, on November 10, 2009, issued Executive Order 809. This executive order established a policy concerning access of immigrants to city services. The executive order directed that all city services shall be made available to all City of Philadelphia residents, regardless of the person's citizenship or legal immigration status. As a result of that executive order, Police Commissioner Ramsey issued a directive to all department personnel that all city services shall be made available to all city residents, regardless of citizenship or legal status. Furthermore, the order specifically stated, law enforcement officers shall not stop, question, arrest, detain an individual solely because of the individual's ethnicity, national origin, or perceived immigration status. Officers shall not inquire about a person's immigration status unless that status itself is a necessary predicate of a crime the officer investigating, or unless the status is relevant to identification of a person who is suspected of committing crime. Officers shall not inquire about the immigration status of a crime victim, witness, or others who call or approach the police seeking help. And officers shall not inquire regarding the immigration status for the purpose of enforcing immigration laws. These measures were taken in an effort to send a strong message to both police personnel and the immigrant community in an attempt to allay fears and encourage greater participation with police. In addition to the above policy implementations, the administration has worked with our criminal justice partners to reduce the pernicious impact ICE has on certain communities in Philadelphia. In 2010, the administration attempted to terminate ICE's licensing agreement for the Preliminary Arraignment Reporting System, or PARS. While the PARS Steering Committee nevertheless renewed the licensing agreement, the committee, at the city's urging, disallowed ICE access to the PARS screens that contain witness and victim information. The city will work closely with our partners on the PARS Steering Committee to ensure that the data provided to ICE is only used to identify those individuals committing the most serious of offenses. The administration is poised to take additional significant steps in protecting our immigrant communities and curtailing ICE's ability to deport immigrants. Immigrants who are contributing members of our communities and whose deportation too often results in children being separated from their parents, and families losing their main breadwinner, and in businesses losing talent. The mayor will soon sign an executive order that will, in its current draft form, preclude the Philadelphia Police Department and the Philadelphia prison system from honoring all ICE detainers except those where the individual is convicted of a felony of the first or second degree involving violence, and only when ICE secures that detainer with a warrant. The city will impose the warrant requirement based on the recent Third Circuit opinion in the case of Galarza versus Salzak. The practical effect of this action will be that the vast majority of offenders will have their cases adjudicated in the local criminal justice system, and any ICE detainer will be disregarded. The only circumstances, and it is a very narrow circumstance, in which the city would not disregard an ICE detainer is where the individual in question has actually been convicted of a very serious violent felony, and the crimes we're talking about are murder, aggravated assault, kidnapping, human trafficking, rape, robbery, and where ICE has separately obtained a warrant, for the individual. This resolves the issue of individuals being detained merely at the request of ICE officials. Individuals who have committed minor offenses, summary offenses, traffic offenses will no longer find themselves facing deportation proceedings, ultimate removal, and separation from their families. The two Mexican boys that Councilman Kenney talked about who were involved in a mutual fight, the Chinese mother, they will all be still here. They won't be going anywhere. This administration is still open to further discussions. As I said, this executive order is in its current draft form. It's not to say that it's in its final draft form or that this is the final word on this subject. These changes that I have discussed were all prompted by the tireless work of the advocate community. The administration appreciates their hard work on behalf of their constituency. Indeed, it was through the interaction between the advocate community and Jennifer and Fernando from Moima that the administration created and will soon implement the latest executive order. My colleagues and I will now be happy to answer any questions from the panel.
Thank you for that.
I have to tell you, applause is a rarity for me in this chamber.
Yeah, I understand. But every now and then.
Every now and then.
Chair recognizes Councilman Kenney.
Thank you. The administration is 99.7% of the way there, and we appreciate. And while I recognize the advocate community wants none at all, you're still open to negotiating, which I think is laudable. And again, you've made me happier today than you usually make me happy. Let me give you just a little bit of background on the Timoney directive. When John Timoney got here as police commissioner, we were having a serious problem in South Philadelphia with the Indonesian community. The Indonesian community came here as asylees. They were being persecuted because of their Christian religion in their home in Indonesia. So they came basically with whatever they had in their back or whatever they could carry, and moved into South Philadelphia, basically in the St. Thomas parish, the old Italian-American former immigrant parish of St. Thomas, and began to flourish there. However, they were victims of crime. They were opening stores, they were being robbed, their cars were being stolen. They'd get into a traffic accident, and the guy in the car in the accident would get out and run, leave the car. They were so afraid of the police, but ironically, they were all eligible for asylum. They all came here under duress, and they were all here legally if they had just went and filed for their status. And when I told Timothy the problem we were having in his inimitable Irish brogue, he said, "What the hell are you talking about?" He said, he said, "In New York, it's the exact opposite. Our police are not allowed to talk to anyone in the federal government relative to anything, relative to a crime victim, a witness, anyone." And he went down with me at his urging to speak to 600 people in the basement of St. Thomas's Church, explaining in his Manhattan, his Hell's Kitchen, Dublin brogue, and it translated into Indonesian, which was an amazing experience. Explained to those folks that they had no reason to fear the police. The police were there to protect and serve them, and that no one in his department would be doing anything relative to contacting the federal government to put these people in jeopardy. So I do laud the administration, thank the mayor, thank you, thank your people for the work that you're doing and will continue to do to make this the friendliest immigrant city in America. And I thank you for it.
Working on it.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Councilman. Now we'll hear from Councilwoman Sanchez. Push your button.
I also want...
Ice cut off your microphone.
I turned off my phone, my microphone. I also want to acknowledge the administration and the office of Moima and Mike Resnick for their willingness to reconsider what was an earlier draft and get us, as Councilman Kenney says, 99.7% of the way there. For the advocates, this is your victory. This is historic. And while we all know that we have a lot more work to do, as the federal government, again, refuses to deal with this very complicated issue, one of the things that's really, really important and I think called for as a result of this draft is for the mayor to meet with the advocates and talk about how this gets implemented. I think it's an important step, but what we want to make sure that its implementation is done in a way that gets the 0.3% where we might not be capturing, so that we are aware of the process. So with that, I wanted to ask Mr. Resnick, how do you foresee the implementation of any executive order as it relates to the data collection, the cost analysis, and importantly, what type of investments are we going to make in training so that people feel confident that this is going to trickle down to the 3rd and the 4th police district where this is going on?
Currently, Councilman, we are able to collect data on ICE detainers lodged at the prison system. Our data systems are not as modern as we would like them to be. So the police department, however, does not have the ability to separate out and track the detainers that ICE has lodged for the police department. We are able to do that at the prison. So I think part of what we need to do now, and because, as you said, this talks about a very, very, very small number of individuals, we'll probably have a better opportunity because of the numbers to keep track of those. So as part of the policy that will be implemented as a result of the executive order, it'll be data collection so that we can review and see how many detainers we actually are complying with. In terms of, I believe your question related to cost, I think, you know, the number of $115 a day in the prison is floated around because it's a very, very easy number to come by. You take the average daily population, you divide it by the budget, and you get a number. But I think that that's not a very accurate way of doing it. I think if we hold an inmate 1 or 2 days, the cost of that is negligible if they've already been processed into our facility for a crime that we're holding them on. I mean, the upfront costs of intake processing are the most expensive. So just being in population for a day or two is not really a significant added cost. So I don't believe, and considering the numbers that we're going to be talking about in the future, I don't believe that they're going to be very significant, that we need to track those. In terms of the training aspect, I think that will be the easiest thing to do because the policy that Councilman Kenney talked about, the policy that I talked about, Commissioner Ramsey implemented, all 6,500 police officers had to be trained on that policy. This policy deals with the individuals who work in the police detention unit and obviously the people who work at the prison in the record room up at CFCF and RCF. So there are just, I don't want to say a handful, but there are relatively fewer people that need to be trained, and supervisors will be trained to go over these, make sure that people are doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. In the order that we produce and the policies that we produce, we will not leave it up to anyone's discretion. There will be a list of what first and second degree felonies regarding violence. They're the ones that I talked about, the murders, the rapes, the robberies, the ag assaults. Those will be on the policy. So there will be nobody left up to their discretion to determine, well, whether this is a felony of the first or second regarding violence or not. We're going to spell it out in the policy. So the policy will be crystal clear, and we will train. Like I said, it will be a lot fewer individuals who will have to be trained on this. So I'm not looking at this as being a very challenging or daunting task to accomplish.
Let me suggest to you, because I think one of the tensions in this dialogue, this very public dialogue that we've had around this drafting of this executive order, has been the coordination or utilizing the advocates to help the administration come to a better place. And so let me strongly encourage you to look at the resources provided in this room through the advocacy groups to help you design what kind of training we provide, not only for the people that are directly involved, but for the folks out in the street. I think where we see the need to close the circle is that. It's feeling like, I was part of a meeting the other day at the invitation of Councilman Squilla, where we had new captains in South Philly area who felt very uncomfortable with their role because they were unfamiliar, because essentially we've asked, whether folks want to be or not, for folks to be immigration experts. And so let me strongly encourage you to look beyond that, the folks directly involved. Obviously we want them to be first, but really talk about how do we, to get to Councilman Kenney's goal, how do we really become an immigrant-friendly, safe city, is how do we engage this community to help work with the police department on what happens on the ground every single day that impacts them. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and I want to make sure that the administration doesn't lose sight of it. I also want to ask on the record that that our chairman, who is a member of CJAB, for us to look at this as another opportunity at the CJAB level. My concern that we do this as an executive order and that the DA's office, that the courts, and others who at some point interface with what we are trying to prevent, that they're not off the hook around what they should know, what they should do, and what the expectations are. And I'm going to ask the chairman to address that at the CJAB meeting, and even more importantly, for there to be an official response from CJAB to the executive order and what their roles are going to be. Because the police department is one department, but we want to make sure, having been involved in deportation proceedings where a judge or someone else may have their own relationship with ICE, we want to make sure that we are crossing the T's and dotting the I's in our entire judicial system in a way that ensures that we're going to enforce this executive order or apply it the best way possible. And then let me further suggest that, I've asked for the meeting with the mayor, with the advocates. Let me further suggest that we really do establish a working group that looks at what are some of the other issues. As you know, I presented a piece of legislation on municipal ID, that we really set a working group that talks about how deliberate we can be in every single department and with every single service that we provide in the city. And let us take this opportunity to break down those silos, those departmental silos, in a way that provides a renewed confidence by the advocacy community that we are trying to live up to this potential of being a real immigrant-friendly city of Philadelphia. So I want to thank you, Mr. Resnick, and want to offer myself and continue to offer our office assistance in doing that. But that CJAB piece is hugely important if we're going to build confidence among our advocates.
As I alluded to in my testimony, Councilwoman, we are but one-third of the PAR steering committee, and it's the administration's vote to end the licensing agreement with ICE to have access to PARs. So there are two other entities that make up the steering committee, and perhaps with the chairman's participation and influence, we can change those votes as well.
Well, I think it's important, and I'll leave it, and I'm sure Councilman Kenney wants to weigh in on this. I think one of the hesitations by some of those departments is that they don't face the public accountability that you do. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to ensure that both the DA, not only when he comes in here to testify for budget hearings, but that the DA and the president judge, in this case, President Nightfield, who have had conversations about this, I think part of their hesitation is that they don't have the information and they don't have the opportunity to hear the stories that you're going to hear today. And I think it's incumbent of us to make sure that that silo is broken and that they see that the national trend is where we're going. And this executive order is a good first step in that, but not closing that loop and us not utilizing the authority, that legislative authority that we have in the executive order to how we fund them and how they spend their resources, because this is an issue of resources, but that public discussion, and that's where we need the leadership both from the chairman and from the administration to make sure that we do that.
Before I hear... Before we hear from Councilman Kenney and then Councilwoman Blackwell, I want to thank you, Councilwoman Sanchez, not only for your work on this issue, but for appointing me to CJAB before the president actually made it official. but it's Freudian. But I think that request that you have, I would be glad to take to CJAB to see if we can't get some unanimity on this issue. And the chair now recognizes Councilman Kenney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your conversation with the Councilwoman, a couple things occurred to me as a matter of suggestion. I'm wondering not if it doesn't happen now, could it be implemented where during ComStat review in areas that have districts that are immigrant heavy, that there be some agenda item on the ComStat review.
Way ahead of you, Councilman. I already discussed it with Deputy Commissioner Bethel.
Terrific. You're batting 1,000 today. It's amazing.
He likes the claps.
The other thing,
remember that.
The other thing I suggest is that perhaps each captain be directed to have some committee that they would determine the makeup of, to meet regularly, almost like a police district advisory council, but an immigrant-centric one, so that they, and I think what that does is that if there's faces, as Councilwoman Sanchez said, if there's faces on these folks, there develops relationships. The police under that captain or under that lieutenant's control begin now to interact better, and you have a better chance of getting information, getting stuff, people reporting things, people wanting to share information as opposed to trying to hide. And the third thing is, and this is something for the chairman to consider with his new unofficial position at CJAB, that perhaps that there be permitted to someone to come and sit that's representative of the community, not to vote obviously, but to listen and have interaction with the three elements of the CJAB. And I think the more communication and the one thing about immigration, whether it's documented or undocumented, that I find is the reason the reason why we have folks who come in and say some of the things that they've said today, they don't see the face. They don't see the face of their great-great-grandfather on the face of the people sitting behind you. So the connection as to their right to be here and our right to be here is the same. I mean, and it doesn't, I've said this 100 times before, you know, we go out and you know, you have EB-5 programs that want to bring in capital and resources and high-tech and biotech people and scientists and engineers, and please, the door's wide open for you. But that statute in Harvard didn't say that. It said, poor, tired, huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That's us. That's the coffin ships that the Irish came on. It's the slave ships that African Americans came on. It's that constant flow of immigration of Jews escaping Nazi Germany. It's the same thing. And until the hyphenated Americans of the past generation see that and understand that in the Mexican, Cambodian, Laotian, African face of a new immigrant, the connection's never going to be made. And I think we can do that through the police. And the police are safer in the end. When police approach people in a respectful manner, the interaction generally turns out good. Sometimes you have to arrest somebody. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes you have to take somebody down. Sometimes you have to shoot somebody. I mean, and that's the big responsibility of being a police officer in the city. But when you can interact with people in a good, positive way, you're much safer than you ever will be otherwise. Agreed. So I'm glad you're ahead of the curve with the CompStat, and let's just keep on dialoguing and putting faces on our citizens who live here from other countries. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. I want to recognize also, for the record, that Councilwoman Bass has joined us from the 8th Councilmatic District. That's right.
Never gets it wrong, does it?
Don't get it twisted. Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you. Let me agree with what Councilwoman Sanchez and on co-sponsor the bill, Councilman Kenney. I agree with all that they have said. We have fought for and enjoy a wonderful relationship with the police department. And we think it is important in this area, when it comes to immigration, that we do have the transparency, confidence, and communication. Certainly, we ask that you would come to our meetings. Charlotte Council was part of our group until she retired, but someone can come to one of our meetings on Tuesday night and, the second Wednesday, which we have tonight at 6, to certainly inform us of where we are on this issue. We'd appreciate that because, as you know, we represent more than 36 countries in Africa and the Caribbean, and we meet in the caucus room across the hall. And we just want to do our part. You know, the police department even agreed under the former commissioner, and this commissioner agreed to even hire more Africans and immigrants, officers in their areas. So we are really, really committed to doing what we can to get the word out on our progress. We're happy to have come this far and look forward to working with you in the future to take the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So,
Councilman,
Mr. Resnick?
there was a request from the gallery as to what is the CJAB, what does that mean? So it's the Criminal Justice Advisory Board. It's a board made up of all the criminal justice partners, the police, the courts, the DA, the sheriff, the public defenders. We come together monthly to discuss issues regarding the criminal justice system, how to streamline the criminal justice system, the prison population, all matters affecting criminal justice system in the city.
So, if there are no other questions for this panel, seeing none, thank you so much. And I want to commend you and the administration, Mayor Michael Nutter, for quickly hearing the voices of the people and making an adjustment in policy. Thank you. Thank you. So with that great victory for the advocates in this room today, this is really a point to be made. Thank you. And thank you for your advocacy. So now, I really want you to minimize your testimony. We still have 10 more witnesses, so what we're going to ask people is to adhere to a 2-minute limitation. So look through your testimony, summarize, get the key points out, and there will be a timer. And when you hear the bell, please grace us with a conclusion. So thank you all. Can you please call the next group to testify?
Mia Leah Kernan, Adam Talantia, Aiden Talantico, Caroline Campbell, and Reverend Aiden Mariana.
Just bring her up.
No.
Come up.
Just sit down.
So,
Okay.
we're going to begin while they sort
Yep,
that out.
that sounds good. Hi, my name is Mia Leah, and I think what I want to do is just address, like, we have come a long way, and thank you, Mr. Resnick and Moima, for announcing what they did here. I think that our concern as the Philadelphia Family Unity Network is still that we not create divisions even within this criminal category, that it can still be really harmful, and I just want to take some time to break that down. Sure. Again, my name is Mia Lee. I'm with One Love Movement, and we did grow out of a detention and deportation crisis in the Cambodian American community, people specifically being deported for criminal convictions. Our work is centered on the belief that families belong together and that removing people from our communities through deportation threatens our survival as people. We also work under the belief that mandatory and institutionalized punishment is not our route as a society to addressing the root causes of violence in our communities. It's not our route to community-led and victim-led healing or to individual accountability and transformation, and it is not our route to rebuilding our traumatized communities. We view mandatory deportation as destructive as it denies us of our individual and community capacity as human beings to grow, change, and heal from mistakes that we've made. The context and reality that we are living in is this. Roughly 1 out of every 100 adults in the United States is behind bars. The United States represents only 5% of the world's population, but incarcerates a quarter of the world's prisoners. People of color represent 30% of our country's population, but account for 60% of those who are imprisoned. 65 million people in the United States have criminal records, and 1 in 5 people in Philadelphia are formerly incarcerated. This reality has led leaders in our city to push for reform, legislation, and programs that consider the complexity and specific context of individuals and communities in relation to our criminal justice system. Our city administration, law enforcement agencies, and city councils have enacted policies that established a Mayor's Office of Reintegration Services, the Ban the Box Bill, the DA's SAM program, alternative sentencing, job creation for formerly incarcerated people, a veterans court to consider the links between PTSD and criminal activity, and many others. These initiatives are our city's stance against mandatory and blanket judgments of our communities and the lifetime and collateral consequences of criminal convictions. Okay, I had some quotes in there from our city officials, but basically saying the fact is that when people with criminal convictions succeed, we all succeed. And with more than 200,000 Philadelphians facing the collateral consequences of their convictions, we must all do a better job at recognizing this special challenge. And deportation is one of those collateral consequences for a large portion of the Philadelphia community. This is also reiterated by U.S. Attorney General Holder, speaking on behalf of President Obama, insisting that we need to find other ways to be progressive in our criminal justice system. So in closing, One Love Movement, the Philadelphia Family Unity Network, and families and communities affected by incarceration and deportation in Philadelphia ask that we take this next step to address ICE and police collaboration with our values front and center and not engage in harmful divisions based on criminal history or levels of criminality. We ask that our city's deeply rooted values of redemption, rehabilitation, second chances, and reintegration be applied and fought for all residents of Philadelphia instead of allowing a mandatory indiscriminate federal deportation system to apply double punishment that directly disintegrates certain populations in our city.
Thank you. You got it in. Well, thank you so much for your testimony. Please proceed. We're doing it 2 minutes so we can get everybody an opportunity. There is another hearing right after this, so that's why we have to implement the bell. Don't make me use the bell. Okay.
Hi, my name is Caroline Campbell, and I represent Congreso de Latinos Unidos. And Congreso has been providing high-quality services to the Latino community in Eastern North Philadelphia for 36 years. Based on our experience at Congreso of supporting survivors who come for services within our Latino domestic violence program, we know all too well that ICE holds affect entire communities, including victims who frequently face additional barriers due to the city's use of ICE holds. Looking at the bigger picture, language and cultural barriers already make it difficult for some immigrant victims to understand their rights, access services, and work with law enforcement. And on top of these ongoing issues, we particularly know that immigrant domestic violence victims are less likely to report domestic violence or seek police assistance because they fear themselves or others they care about will be reported to the federal deportation authorities, held, detained, or deported. The threat of deportation weighs heavily on the minds of community members that we serve. We have seen domestic violence victims be subjected to arrest and imprisonment due to just misunderstandings based on language, barriers at the scene of arrest. Reports that domestic violence victims have been rounded up are all too common, and we have seen abusers threaten victims by telling them that they will be deported if they seek assistance. The relationship between the police and deportation authorities contributes to this misperception, and all of these factors make our communities more dangerous because people are not seeking the help that they need. In addition to these barriers, we also know that the victims of violence are mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, and partners who have very complicated and evolving relationships. They may need assistance or protection from law enforcement to deal with an abusive relationship, but that does not always mean that they want the person to be deported or put into permanent exile from their home and their community. Our clients need supportive services that help them heal and transform their lives, and they need to have control over their own futures. They may never want to see that person again, or they may want to continue their relationship after an incident, or they may need child support that that person was providing. Many of our clients want to give that person who abused them a second chance to rehabilitate themselves, but by using ICE holds, the city is forcing victims to choose between seeking protection and having their family member permanently deported. Thank you.
Perfect. Are there any questions for this panel? Seeing none, thank you for your time. And all testimony is submitted, will be a part of the record.
Wonderful.
All right?
Thank you.
All written testimony will be included. Jim?
Hola, mi nombre es Adán Tlatenco y soy miembro de Juntos.
Hi, my name is Adan Tlatenco, and I'm a member of Juntos.
Estoy aquí en este día para hablar sobre el caso de mi hermano y cómo afecta un ICE hold en un inmigrante.
I'm here today to talk about my brother's case and about how an ICE hold affects immigrants.
Todo empezó por un DUI en el 2012 en el cual mi hermano estuvo detenido por 5 días.
It all began with a DUI in 2012, during which my brother was detained for 5 days.
Yo personalmente traté de pagar la fianza de la cual la cajera no aceptó que yo pagara.
I then personally tried to pay for his bail, but I was told by the cashier that she would not accept the payment.
Me dijo que no podía aceptar el pago porque ya tenía un detainer o ICE hold.
She told me that they were unable to expect my bail money because my brother already had a detainer or ICE hold placed on him.
Que aunque yo pagara de nada serviría.
And even if I paid in full, it wouldn't change anything.
Pero en cambio, mi hermano estuvo 5 días detenido esperando que inmigración lo recogiera.
In my brother's case, he was detained for 5 days while waiting for immigration agents to come pick him up.
Pienso que violaron sus derechos como ser humano.
I think that this was a violation of his human rights.
Con eso empezó su caso de inmigración y que aún está luchando hasta estos momentos.
This is how his immigration case began, and we are still fighting his case to this day.
Estoy consciente que mi hermano cometió un delito por el cual ya ha pagado como cualquier ciudadano de los Estados Unidos.
I'm aware that my brother did commit a crime in which he has already paid his debt to society like any other citizen of the United States.
Es injusto que tenga que pagar con doble condena.
It's unjust that he now has to pay a double punishment.
Porque un inmigrante necesita pagar 2 veces por un delito.
Why do us immigrants have to pay 2 times for our crimes?
Venimos a este país para buscar oportunidades, igualdad, para realizar nuestros sueños.
We all come here to this country for opportunities, equality, and to realize our dreams.
Pero no somos tratados iguales ante la ley.
But we're not treated as equals in the eyes of the law.
Hay 2 sistemas diferentes, el sistema judicial, que en este caso fue del estado de Pensilvania, y el sistema de inmigración, que es un sistema federal.
There are 2 different systems in place, the justice system, which in this case is that of the state of Pennsylvania, and an immigration system, which is federal.
La ciudad de Filadelfia no debe permitir que inmigración tenga acceso a su sistema judicial.
The city of Philadelphia should not allow immigration to have access to its judicial system.
Todos somos seres humanos y como humanos cometemos errores, pero también tenemos derechos.
We are all human beings, and as humans we make mistakes, but we also have rights.
Y estos derechos incluyen segundas oportunidades.
And these rights include the ability to have a second chance.
ICE holds y las deportaciones que resultan de los ICE holds se quitan a la gente estos derechos y las oportunidades de restablecer su vida.
ICE holds and the deportations that happen as a result of ICE holds deny people these rights and the opportunity to reestablish their lives.
Es por eso que la ciudad de Filadelfia necesita parar todos los ICE holds, no solo algunos, sino todos, porque todos somos una misma comunidad.
This is why the city of Philadelphia needs to stop all ICE holds, not just some, but all, because we are all one united community.
Thank you.
Dear honorable members of the City Council of Philadelphia, my name is also Adan. I am Reverend Adan Mairena from the West Kensington Ministry at Norris Square. We are a Presbyterian ministry and part of the Presbytery of Philadelphia, which comprises of over 120 churches in Philadelphia and the surrounding region. I am here with my colleague, Reverend Estras Seda, and I will read my personal statement, but he will read one on behalf of Hispanic clergy of Philadelphia and the region, so we ask for the courtesy. His letter is a lot shorter than mine. We thank you for having the foresight, for having this issue of great importance before us, and for including our voice in the planned response to this issue. Although I have opened up session here with prayer, I normally do not participate in hearings, but want to let you know that many in the faith-based community, not only Christians, because I see a lot of friends here from the Interfaith Peace Walk here and other faiths represented, we find it urgent to express our stand that our city should ban ICE holds. I am proud to proclaim that our city was founded as a safe haven for those fleeing religious persecution centuries ago. However, I am embarrassed that today our city is not considered a safe haven for those who have no choice but to flee their home countries for economic persecution. That is poverty or the lack to sustain oneself and one's family. 17 other localities, including Miami, San Francisco, Newark, New Orleans, and New York City have banned or modified ICE holds. As a proud Philadelphian, I believe, as many of you do, that our city needs to recapture its identity as a place that welcomes the stranger and not a place that terrorizes him or her. Honorable members of the City Council, the Philadelphia Family Unity Network, the New Sanctuary Movement, and others remind us that ICE holds are issued solely because of immigration status and are not reviewed by a judge before they are issued, violates our 1, community's due process and human rights, 2, increases racial profiling, 3, wastes precious city dollars and decreases public safety. These groups also state that ICE holds also traumatize families and communities. And I have witnessed this firsthand, this traumatic effect firsthand. Last year, Priscilla, a single mother, and her 7-year-old son Marcos started attending our church. Marcos, as all children, was excited to become part of a family. However, I noticed that Marcos bit other children, hit them, and had several tantrums. Marcos was affectionate towards me and always ran up to me and hugged my knees. One night I saw Priscilla getting off the bus near the church and I walked her home. She was tired because she had just finished cleaning apartments here in Center City. She said, "Pastor, I'm sorry that Marcos behaves the way he does, and I understand if you don't want us to come to church. I understand if other moms are mad at me because they think I'm a bad mom." She paused and trusted me enough to share the following. Ever since the police in La Migra took his father because he didn't have an identification card, it has been really hard. I thought to myself, no wonder he lashes out to people and runs and hugs my knees. His mom is always working. He doesn't have his father and doesn't understand why. He's angry. In 1562, England's Queen Elizabeth lent Sir John Hawkins a ship by the name, ironically enough, the good ship Jesus. Sir John Hawkins traveled to the coast of Africa and captured 500 slaves through violence. Yes, Sir John Hawkins has the dubious distinction of becoming the first slave ship captain to bring Africans to the Americas. At that point, the law of the land was a ruling monarchical system that combined forces with an inhumane economic structure where people were deemed commodities, property, and sources of profit. Families were broken up and traumatized. Many Priscillas lost their husbands, and many Marcoses lost their fathers. I believe that was something that God was not in favor of. Today we have progressed enough to be ruled under a democratic system. However, families that have been separated by that system could argue that what happened in 1562, the traumatic separation of families, is happening today, and I believe that God is still not in favor of that. Honorable members of City Council, I thank you for the opportunity to express the concern many of us have in the faith community, and I pray that you continue the work you are doing of progressing our democratic system and continuing to make our city a great place that welcomes the stranger. Please continue to get ICE holds bans.
Thank you.
Go ahead, continue.
Please identify yourself, and please try to keep your comments within the 2-minute time frame. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Ezra Seda. I'm a pastor of United Methodist Church representing about 500 churches in this region and representing also Hispanic clergy of Philadelphia and vicinity. We welcome the opportunity to address you, and as faith leaders of our community, we are deeply concerned about the city's current policy to conduct ICE hold when requested by the Federal Department of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to voice our concern and to provide input to the city's planned response on this issue. By involving the city police officers in enforcing federal immigration law, we are weakening our local enforcement efforts and compromising the safety and welfare of families in our community. When we agree to hold immigrants that have not been charged with or convicted with any crime until federal government can arrange the deportation, we are in many cases needlessly supporting the process of tearing families apart and separating parents from their children. This policy makes our community members more fearful, distrusting of law enforcement in our city, and do not cooperate with police, therefore straining vital positive relationship between the community police and the safety of the city. We believe this is a moral issue much as it is a civil, practical issue. It is not the responsibility of our police officers to become engaged in the business of enforcing federal immigration law and ICE. The damage that they do to families subjected to an unjust process, and to immigrants in our communities who are placed in adversarial rather than cooperative position with police. We should immediately end our policy of agreeing to ICE hold. Despite the flaws of our country's existing immigration system, our immigrant community make a valuable contribution to our city. We should be striving to become more welcoming city through immigrants while we focus on policing efforts to maintain the safety and well-being of our residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Whoever's ready to go, please identify yourself for the record. And again, please try to maintain our timetable.
I'll try. Thank you. Distinguished City Council...
Excuse me, you have to identify yourself.
Sure. My name is Jia Wang with the American Friends Service Committee Immigrant Rights Program. We are based in Newark, New Jersey, but the American Friends Service Committee's headquarters is here in Philadelphia, as many of you know. Our program provides legal services to low or no income immigrants and organized immigrants who have been affected by immigration policies on the local, state, and federal level. While the larger AFSC is a 97-year-old organization, our program has been in existence for about 20 years in New Jersey. In the summer of 2013, the Newark Police Department adopted a new policy that mandates all department personnel show decline immigration detainer requests from the Federal Immigration Agency. We are proud to be part of the municipality that will not hold immigrants for deportation purposes and makes no exceptions to this policy. The Newark Police Department recognized it has the authority over criminal issues along with the local prosecutors, and that bringing in immigration agency will only damage any trust relationship that's already been established with the city's large immigrant community. Just so that you know, we have about 25% of foreign-born population in the city of Newark. Immigration detainer can be placed on people who have some contact with local police and who have been already released from criminal sentences, either completely or on probation or parole. They have already served criminal sentences and been deemed eligible for release. Any further detention deportation is additional punitive, hurts individual and families, and benefits nobody. So I only want to highlight the impact of detention and deportation could be lifelong. So we urge the city of Philadelphia not to be part of the system of detention deportation.
Thank you. Please identify yourself for the record.
Sure, my name is Salvador from the National Day Labor Organizing Network. I'll keep my remarks brief. I'll just make, I think, two main points. I work with a network of day laborers at the national level that's been dealing with these policies across the country. And one of the things that's important about that is a lot of these federal programs were developed with very local communities that wanted to take a very hard line, literally anti-immigrant position against specifically day laborers. And day laborers, you know, workers that you hire outside of Home Depot, for example, had a big target sign in a lot of these localities. So a lot of these programs, I mean, are real, we know what these programs, they're real mean-spirited programs. And so that's why it's so important that in jurisdictions like Philadelphia, and for example, like we did in Washington, D.C., where we can get a strong, bold standard that we do it. And so that's why being here, I'm out in D.C., but being here and listening to the remarks from the council members, it's real refreshing and to know where you know, hearing what the recent news is. But definitely, you know, where we can create standards that require no ICE holds, we need to do that. You know, and let's make sure that, you know, the warrant, it can't be a civil warrant, it can't be a notice to appear, it can't be an ICE warrant of any way, it has to go before a judge. And you know, this really is Philadelphia joining a national consensus that these programs are misguided. And DHS and ICE are really feeling the heat, and that's true. And the outgoing ICE director, he knew that these immigration holes needed to be reformed. So first, we just want to congratulate you and say thank you. And if you need any specifics about how we can make it stronger, let me know.
Will do. Thank you. Please.
Hi, my name is Molly Tack Hooper. I'm a staff attorney at the ACLU of Pennsylvania. The ACLU has long been concerned about the significant constitutional problems posed by ICE detainers. The U.S. Constitution guarantees the right not to be imprisoned without probable cause and due process of law, yet ICE routinely asks local officials to hold people in jail beyond the time when they should be released based on nothing more than ICE's interest in investigating whether they might be subject to deportation. In addition, using local law enforcement agencies to enforce federal civil immigration laws invites law enforcement officers to engage in unconstitutional racial and ethnic profiling and to treat people perceived to be foreign differently. ICE detainers regularly violate the constitutional rights not only of immigrants, but also of U.S. citizens. And it is now clear that local agencies that choose to imprison people based on ICE detainers can be held liable in court for the constitutional violations caused by the detainers. In 2010, the ACLU sued on behalf of Ernesto Galarza, a New Jersey-born U.S. citizen of Puerto Rican descent who was held illegally for 3 days in the Lehigh County Prison pursuant to an ICE detainer. Lehigh County Prison granted the detainer request, as it always did, because it believed it had no other choice. But last week, the Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit held that ICE detainers are merely non-binding requests to detain someone, and that because local agencies are not required to comply with ICE detainers, they may be held liable for their role in causing an unlawful detention when there is no constitutionally valid basis for the detainer. So Mr. Galarza's claims against Lehigh County for imprisoning him based on an unlawful ICE detainer will go forward. Cases like Mr. Galarza's demonstrate that when local law enforcement agencies choose to treat any ICE detainer requests as a basis for continued detention, This jeopardizes the rights of everyone in the community, including citizens as well as immigrants. The ACLU commends Mayor Nutter and the Director of Public Safety for announcing that Philadelphia will join the growing movement of jurisdictions choosing to limit local entanglement with ICE, adopting a policy that, as I understand it, would prohibit detention based on an ICE detainer without an accompanying judicial warrant backed by probable cause. This is a huge step forward towards upholding the Constitution and protecting the rights and safety of all Philadelphians. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Christopher Chapman, Dr. Vera Talbert, Vafi Jabata,
Please identify yourself for the record, and again, we would ask you kindly to maintain our time frame, because we have, after you, we have 10 more witnesses. Please identify yourself.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me thank all of you and the council for allowing us to speak. My name is Vera Talbert. I represent AFRICOM, which is a coalition of African and Caribbean communities. I'd like to make a statement from AFRICOM that says, ICE holding does not contribute to the safe communities. African and Caribbean immigrants would work more with the City of Philadelphia law enforcement agents if they are not under constant threats of being reported to ICE. When looking at this safe community, we know our immigrants come here and they have really contributed to the wonderful and beautiful fabric of Philadelphia. So let me say what AFRICOM definitely, will or will not support. Since 2003, AFRICOM has joined the New Century Movement initiative to support the reform of the U.S. immigration system, to emphasize that immigration is a human right and as such should be dealt with more humanely. And to ask the City of Philadelphia through its council to end the existing collaboration between its police department and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. According to the ICE website, the highest priority of any law enforcement agency is to protect the community it serves. When it comes to enforcing our nation's immigration laws, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is ICE, forces its limited resources on those who have been arrested for breaking criminal laws. ICE prioritizes the removal of criminal aliens, those who pose a threat to public safety and repeat immigration violations. Let me say one thing about the immigrants. Where they come from, the police has all authority to do everything. So if you're trying to protect this community, you will scare them away because where they come from, they would never collaborate with the police. So we are asking the council today to vote to have the mayor change his mind and end all ICE collaborations here in Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you. Please identify yourself for the record.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
My name is Christopher Chapman, and I have served as co-chairman of Team Jamaica Bickle, chairman of the Philadelphia Complete Count Committee of the U.S. Census in the 2010 U.S. Census. I'm currently a vice president of the African and Caribbean Business Council and a member of the Mayor's Commission on African and Caribbean Immigrant Affairs. During the 2010 U.S. Census, we faced challenges getting out our community to register because of immigration and other issues. As you are aware, the City of Philadelphia registered an increase in population during that census. That result would have been threatened had the Secure Communities program been in place then, and that result would be threatened going forward were the Secure Communities program to continue. Each year, Team Jamaica Bickle hosts some 600 high school athletes and chaperones at the annual pen relays. In addition, some 40,000 Jamaicans attend relays from around the United States and overseas. Aggressive enforcement of the Secure Communities program will likely have an adverse impact on the attendance at events like this, and ultimately on the taxes that support our great city. As a vice president of the African and Caribbean Business Council and as a banker and consultant helping to finance a number of immigrant businesses in the city of Philadelphia, I have a first-hand view of the energy that Caribbean and African entrepreneurs bring to the city of Philadelphia. It would be strange indeed if we were to put this vibrancy and this culture of immigrant entrepreneurship at risk because of aggressive and misguided enforcement of a flawed program. Let me close by offering my support and my community support of Resolution 130880. And I look forward to the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection joining other forward-thinking cities which have put a hold on aggressive enforcement and certain aspects of the Secure Communities program. Thank you.
Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Chris, Bofi, Dr. Tolbert. We wanted to make sure that that the total community realizes that Africans and Caribbeans suffer very much with this issue as well. We are proud that they realize that ACANA, represents all of us, and AFRICOM, and we're talking about citywide Africans and Caribbeans, and we thank you for the work you do for the total African and Caribbean community in our city and beyond. And I'm sure you told them what AFRICOM and ACANA stand for, did you? Yes, we did. All right, so we thank you for your leadership over the years. Thank you for being here, and we appreciate your commitment. Thank you. I'll see you all at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Bofi Jabate. I am from the African Cultural Alliance of North America, the largest African and Caribbean serving immigration or legal service organization in the city of Philadelphia. ACANA was founded in 1999, principally as an arts and culture organization. Over the years, our program have expanded, and its main focus now is this issue of immigration and fair legal practices for African and Caribbean immigrants. In 2003, ACANA was provided a grant to serve African refugees in the Philadelphia region. We provided case management, after-school services, as well as conducted several workshops geared towards bridging the gap between the host community and the African immigrant community. In addition, we also assisted immigrant families in connecting with available social services. In 2009, ACANA became a full-fledged immigration service provider. Along with me, being approved as an accredited representative to practice immigration law before the Board of Immigration Appeal and CIS. Our agency has since then annually served an average of 1,400 African and Caribbean immigrants and sometimes other immigrants who come to ACANA. As a result of our unique position, ACANA has become a huge hub for African and Caribbean immigrants who are seeking immigration services in this region. We are better placed now to now say thank you all, City Council, thank you all, Mayor Nutter, and especially thank you all, Councilwoman Jenny Blackwell, for the role you have played. Thank you for all of what you've done to bring this issue to focus. Every other Wednesday of every month, you sit and listen to our stories. You did not wait for this day. You've done it already. Thank you again.
Are there any questions for this panel of witnesses?
Let me again, Mr. Chairman, thank them. Thank you both for your remarks. Many of you know he's at 55th and Chester in the heart of my district. And we just appreciate all the commitment and the thousands of people who are represented here and all that they do to make life better. Thank you, and Volpe, I'll see you all tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Seeing no other questions, thank you for your testimony. Will the clerk please read the names of the next people to testify?
Teresa Flores, Carla Rojas, Harim Rivera,
Thank you, and thank you for your patience. Please bring your mic to you and begin the testimony, and if there is an interpreter, please do so.
Okay. Buenas tardes.
Buenas.
Mi nombre es Teresa, soy miembro del Movimiento Santuario y miembro de Visitación.
My name is Teresa Flores. I'm a member of New Sanctuary Movement and Visitation Church.
Estoy aquí para en corto tiempo yo voy a decir mi historia de todo lo que sufrí por la deportación de mi hijo.
In a very short period of time, I'm going to tell you about everything that I suffered because of the deportation of my son.
En el año 2010, mi hijo mayor fue víctima de retenciones de los ICE Hall. El motivo de su deportación fue una acusación falsa, la mala información y el mal consejo de su abogado.
In 2010, my oldest son was a victim of an ICE hold. The reason for his deportation was a false accusation, misinformation, and bad advice from a lawyer.
Mi hijo fue deportado por ser una persona de buen corazón y ayudar a un amigo.
My son was deported for being a person of good heart and for helping a friend.
Mi hijo le prestó dinero a un amigo americano.
My son loaned money to an American friend.
Cuando mi hijo intentó cobrarle el dinero que le había prestado, entonces esta persona americana llamó a la policía y lo acusó injustamente de haberlo amenazado con un arma.
When my son attempted to collect the money that he had loaned to this person, the American person called the police and accused him of having threatened him with a firearm.
La policía arrestó a mi hijo y se lo llevó detenido inmediatamente. ICE le puso una retención. Mi hijo estuvo por 6 meses en la cárcel esperando ser juzgado.
The police arrested my son and immediately turned him over to ICE. ICE put an ICE hold on him. My son was in jail for 6 months waiting for his trial.
Contratamos un abogado que nos cobró una fuerte cantidad de dinero y le aconsejó a mi hijo que se declarara culpable de los cargos para que así lo liberaran inmediatamente.
We hired an attorney to defend him who charged a lot of money and who advised my son that if he pled guilty, he would be released immediately. And my son did so thinking that he would be released.
Así lo hizo mi hijo pensando que saldría en libertad.
I already said.
Okay. En vez de ser liberado, mi hijo fue tomado por inmigración y deportado. Mi hijo fue deportado después de haber vivido en Estados Unidos por 19 años. Aquí en este país se formó, tenía sueños de trabajar como piloto, de estudiar, crecer como un ser humano y servir a este país. Era un muchacho de gran corazón involucrado en la comunidad y en la iglesia.
Instead, he was picked up by immigration and deported. He had been living in the U.S. for 19 years. He grew up here, had dreams of studying to become a pilot and serving this country. My son had a big heart, was very involved in his community and church.
La deportación de nuestro hijo nos ha causado un dolor inimaginable, no solamente a él, sino a todos en la familia. También a su hermano con quien eran muy unidos.
The deportation of our son has caused us unimaginable pain, not only to him, but everyone in the family, including his brother, who is very close to him.
Es injusto que tengamos que pasar tanto dolor cuando aportamos al crecimiento de esta ciudad, pagando taxes y dándole vida a la ciudad con la diversidad y construcción de nuevos negocios.
It's unjust that we must suffer this much pain when we contribute to the growth of the city by paying taxes and giving life to the city with diversity and building new businesses.
Todos somos hijos de Dios en esta tierra y merecemos un lugar donde vivir sin miedo.
We are all children of God on this earth and deserve a place to live without fear.
Por eso la ciudad de Filadelfia debe practicar lo que predica y ser verdaderamente una ciudad acogedora, fraterna, ciudad de hermandad. Es por eso que agradezco a los concejales por apoyarnos y pido al alcalde Norer y a su administración que sean valientes, que se pongan en nuestros zapatos y termine los ICE Hall y así desconecte a la policía y a cárceles locales de ICE. Como madre de familia y víctima de esta colaboración injusta, le pido que nos escuche y firme una orden ejecutiva que bloquee los ice hall para todos, no solo para algunos, y así otros no tengan que vivir el dolor que mi familia aún vive.
The city of Philadelphia should practice what it preaches and truly become a welcoming city, a city of brotherhood. That's why I thank the council members for supporting us and ask Mayor Nutter and his administration to be brave, put yourself in our shoes, and end the ICE holds and disconnect the police and local jails from ICE. As a mother who was a victim of this unjust collaboration, I ask that you listen to us and sign an executive order to block all ICE holds for all, not just for some, and so others do not have to live with the pain that my family still experiences.
Muchas gracias por escuchar.
Thank you so much for listening.
De nada. De nada. I saw her wait all that time, so I let her run over a little bit. It was okay. But what I need people to do, we have to have a second hearing for another committee, well, actually, my committee again, at 1:30. So if everybody sticks to the 2-minute, everybody can get their testimony on the record, if that's okay with everyone. All right? Thank you, and begin your testimony, sir.
So my name is Hiram Rivera. I'm the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Student Union. I'll cut my summary short. Said the Philadelphia Student Union stands with all the organizations here to call for an end to all ICE holds, and for that the resources that are used to fund ICE holds be instead put into funding our starving public school system. I'd like to defer the rest of my time to the student to my
Before
right.
you do that, Philadelphia Student Union for public schools?
The Philadelphia Student, yes, sir.
I used to be the vice president, so welcome.
I'd like to defer the rest of my time to the student to my right so she can read her statement of
Hi, my name is Carla Rojas, and I'm a graduate of Philadelphia School System, and I'm currently attending Community College of Philadelphia. I'm also a youth leader at Juntos. I'm an undocumented youth. I came to this country when I was 7 years old. During my junior year of high school, I learned I was undocumented. I was scared and confused because I did not know my rights as an undocumented youth. I had no hope in going to college, so I dropped out. I got myself together and graduated. My story is just one story of many out there. I graduated, but a lot of students don't graduate because of fear of not going to college. Fear that society is not going to accept them because of where they come from. Fear of their schools, fear of the police. When did we get to this point? Why should we put fear into our students? The excuse is that we have no money. But how come our government is spending more money on prisons than on our students? We spend about $10,000 per year on a student, but spend more than $40,000 per year on our prisoners. Did we wonder why our dropout rate is high? The dropout rate in Philadelphia is around 43%, and close to 50% of that is the Latino males. We have set up our students to fall into the system of getting locked up, the famous school-to-prison pipeline. How are we helping the students by making them feel like they are in prison when they are in school? Putting bars in their school windows and being put through metal detectors the moment they step foot in school. Why are we shutting education on our innocent kids? They are our future. Everybody makes mistakes, but they also need a second chance. How are we rewarding our students? They fall into the school deportation pipeline. Just because our students made a mistake does not mean we have to punish them by locking them up. Most of them made a simple mistake like bringing a BB gun to school or getting into a fight. Why are we involving the school into this? They are just kids. They don't know any better. If they got punished already for this misbehavior, there's no need to punish them twice. Why are we attacking our elementary schools, middle schools, high schools? Many of the students come from abusive homes, live in poverty, disabled. Instead of helping them, we kick them out of our society and let them fall apart. First, we set up our students for failure, and now, them out of our society, we are breaking our families apart. Our immigrant communities are scared of being separated from our immigrant communities are scared of being separated from their families. They came to this country to give their family a better life, a better education. Why are we attacking the hardworking communities? They came to this country to work, put food on the table, and grow as a person with the opportunities this country has to offer. We arrest them for a crime as little as driving without a license. But because they were arrested at the border or while getting deported and coming to the country again, it's considered a crime not hurting society. We put ICE holes and make them pay their mistakes twice. We need to stop attacking our community, our kids, our school, our people, our future. They are our future. Because when our communities are under attack, what do? We stand up and fight back. We stand up and fight back against any ICE hole in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you.
As students in school, what you should be worried about is what to wear, what to study. You should have one set of books, book bag, not the burden of dealing with ICE every day and looking over your shoulder. Thank you for your testimony.
I'm just reading, my name is Mia Lee, and I'm reading this for Nancy Nguyen of Boat People SOS Delaware Valley, a Vietnamese community-based organization. She says, end all ICE detainers in Philadelphia. They pose unnecessary and immediate and lasting threats to our communities and in particular to our youth. This is a story that many of you will remember. On December 3rd, 2009, nearly 30 Asian immigrant students were attacked by their peers in an all-day melee. What became of that struggle became national news, and in the immediate aftermath of this biased violence, students and families were not reached out to, no phone calls, no letters, no families were called, no parents were informed of what had happened in school. In the face of this absolute absence of responsibility from the school district, the students had few choices, either return to school in silence or return to school with the vengeance and the anger that they felt in their hearts. However, the seeds of change had been planted in support of youth and community organizers, many of whom are in this room. They turned to a third choice, which was to catalyze that fear and anger and pain into a nonviolent protest of all the students' conditions in the school. They boycotted the school and demanded a school district that had safe schools for all students. In the ensuing weeks, months, and years, Asian and Southeast Asian immigrant and refugee adults came out to support these youth. The adults who had faced those same situations and circumstances a generation before. Except in their day, in the 80s, there were no organizations or mentors or youth organizers to present another choice to them. So they dropped out of school to avoid the violence, or they fought back and ended up going through the school to deportation pipeline. Decades later, many of them are facing the deportation crisis that we're in today. We stand here with the long view of history, and we cannot stand for another generation of youth to be caught in these unfair and unjust policies. All policies are written statements of how we want to live in our cities and our communities. So we come to you with a vision for our policies to be written with the goal of keeping families and communities together and for that goal to be youth-centered. The first step to that is to end all ICE detainers in Philadelphia. Thank you.
But before you go, just say your name again for the record.
My name is Mia Leah, and I'm reading this for Nancy Nguyen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Again, feel free to summarize, feel free to submit it in writing. Feel free.
I'll be quick. My name is Tasha Kellerman. I'm the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Immigration and Citizenship Coalition and proud to be a Philadelphia immigrant. PIC's written testimony describes why we support a policy to end all ICE holds, so I won't cover that here. But it is important to provide some history to the current campaign to end local police collaboration with federal law enforcement, because this is not a new campaign, and when we say that the administration acted quickly, unfortunately they didn't, although we're very happy, of course, that they're moving forward now. Many of the organizations and individuals in this room have been working to address this issue for over 10 years. PIC started working with local organizations, including Victim Witness Services of South Philadelphia, Community Legal Services, and Juntos, to address community police relations in 2004. In 2009 and 2010, a coalition of more than 40 organizations approached Mayor Nutter and Deputy Mayor Gillison to restrict police collaboration with ICE through secure communities and to end the PARS agreement. What is new about the campaign this time is that diverse community groups, service providers, and advocacy organizations came together and decided to reject the framework imposed upon us by federal immigration system of the good immigrant versus the bad immigrant. Through a community-driven campaign, we decided to fight for all of our communities together and not for a policy that would leave some communities out. We know through experience that if we support a policy that leaves some of our communities out, they will be left behind for good, and we will have to deal with the consequent divisions within our immigrant community. Implementation of policy is as important as establishing policy. In 2005, Philadelphia was one of the first, if not the first, cities in the country to have a language access directive for its police department. And yet today, we still have yet to see a comprehensive implementation of this policy. I urge Philadelphia to think big, to move beyond 99.7% to 100%, because by doing that, we will avoid implementation problems, we will avoid continued racial profiling that you've heard about today through the testimonies, and we will not leave ourselves liable to lawsuits. Let Philadelphia be at the forefront of the municipal push for immigrant-friendly cities by ending all ICE holds.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Erica Almiron, and I'm here before you today as the Executive Director of Juntos, a proud Latina in the city and a proud daughter of immigrants. Juntos was started over 12 years ago as a support network for new Latino immigrants in the city, and over the last 12 years, our community has worked to address the many concerns they have encountered in the city of Philadelphia, the most tragic and destructive of them being that of deportations. Deportations in our city has led to hundreds of families being separated, which in turn has contributed to the decimation of our communities through poverty, children being raised without one or both parents, increased violence, and further isolation of our people from accessing a dignified life. Over the years, Juntos has worked with many allies in this room and beyond to address and change an unequal system that has for decades created a permanent underclass in the city of poor people and people of color. If we do not work to create changes that challenge and shatter this unequal system, then we are, through our silence, feeding it and helping it grow. Given that, if we do not do the work to begin to dismantle the relationship between local police and ICE by ending all ICE holds, like so many of the people who spoke before me have asked, we are also feeding the growing deportation machine, a machine that has shattered the lives of almost 2 million families across the country in as little as 5 years. We have an opportunity here to sit on the side of hope, of love, and justice by creating a policy that does not create divisions amongst our families, one that could begin to rebuild trust between local police and the community, and that one that will ultimately create a better Philadelphia for all of us. As you have seen, there are many examples of cities across this country that have taken the courageous step to publicly announce that they do not honor any ICE holds. To have a clear, simple, and concise policy that creates no confusion on the side of the police department or in our community. To have a policy that is rooted in the values of this city. This will offer no room for uncertainty in how the policy is implemented, the principle of which it came forth, and further safeguard the city from potential lawsuits, because every single ICE hold risks violating the Constitution, the very Constitution that was signed here in Philadelphia on the principles we hold dear that make us the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Thank you.
Wow. I think they're cheering because you did it within the 2 minutes, but I want to say this to you, and particularly you. You hit on a very important point. Executive orders are executive orders. Executive action is better.
That's right.
And the implementation of this, what I'd like to challenge the author of this resolution and all members on this committee to do is, as we ask questions during the budget process of all of these agencies, to make sure this is inculcated into their practice. So I heard you with my good ear. I have a bad ear, but I heard you with my good ear, and I want to make sure that we follow up on that. So thank you both very much.
Thank you. Councilman Jones, I know that we're in a rush. There are a couple of community members who would deeply like to say a couple of words. I swear they won't take more than 2 minutes. Can we add them in? They're already
Where
here.
are we on the list?
We have 3 additional witnesses,
So we have 3 left?
3 more.
Okay. All
Yeah?
right, but 2 minutes, you promise.
Okay, I promise.
Maria Serna.
Okay, good.
Father John Olnick. Luz Jimenez. Oh, you want to add them at the end?
Yeah, add them now. Tell them to come on up.
Good morning,
Good morning.
ladies and gentlemen of Council City. My name is Maria Serna. I am a member of Juntos and the founder of the Fight for Driver License Group PA. I want to let you know also of the history of our state and city and why we trust between community and police has been completely broken. In 2009, I received a letter from Pendo, the same letter that close to 500,000 immigrants in the state of Pennsylvania received at that point. The letter had said, I had to surrender my driver's license. Not knowing what to do, many members of the community and I began to hold meetings in Northeast Philadelphia. After several meetings, 5 fellow immigrants and I decided to take the state of Pennsylvania to court, demonstrating the state had violated our right to due process. We won the case, and today I'm able to show my driver's license.
All right.
This is not the case, however, for thousands of immigrants whose rights have been trampled on and who lack any sort of document for recognize their identity. Lacking a local valid ID or a driver license, people are placed in difficult circumstances. When they cross the police pass in the street or in a traffic stop, many of them are in really beginning a process of deportation. Those deportations have broken up families and left many young people without 1 or 2 parents to care for them. This is why for Juntos and Fight for Driver License deportation are the number 1 issue to address. Why we have devoted ourselves to build cohesive power for our community, to end the policies and practices that separate our families. In Philadelphia, we have seen cases where being involved in an accident or even interacting with the policies can lead to a deportation. There is an obvious connection between the lack of local identification and the begin the deportation proceedings. We hear story after story of families still apart through deportation because an adult was pulled over or stopped in a traffic due to racial profiling. Sometimes a community member chose their foreign ID. We immediately trigger a series of questions on migratory status by the police. Even in the Philadelphia Police Department is under an executive order not to request such information. All of these stories has created a deep culture of mistrust and fear that was damaged our community. Many people live in fear of they being pulled over, talking to the police, reporting incidents, working with police as victims of crimes. What this has to lead is an insecure community, households. Magnify this problem. Here is a very sentiment that police are doing further enforcement, that we can never ever begin to build this trust to engage in a deeper communication with our community.
Thank you.
For all these reasons, we in Juntos and Fight for Driver License, we to end all deportation and all destructive policies to us households that endanger the right of our communities to due process, that breed fear and that rip apart families. Okay, that's my testimony.
Thank you so very much. We have another hearing starting in 10 minutes, so can people come up that are interested in testifying, just the limited number, so, because we have to end. All right. And by the way, you did win. We got a victory today.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Father John Olenek. I'm the pastor of Visitation BVM Catholic Church in Kensington. It's a pleasure to speak to you this afternoon. I'm here to talk to you about, as you well know, the city's current agreement with ICE and why it should be morally unacceptable to people of faith and goodwill. Laws are meant to serve the common good of society. It is their aim to strengthen the bonds of community. And the current relationship between ICE and the city of Philadelphia does none of these things. In fact, it does the opposite. Two of the women who have testified today, Teresa Flores and Alejandra Mota, are my parishioners. I've heard the stories. I know about parents being led away in handcuffs, children being tormented, children who are in foster care now and suffer deep emotional and psychological wounds because of this policy. This cannot continue for the good of our neighborhoods and our city. In the book of Leviticus, taken from the Jewish scriptures, chapter 19, verses 33 to 34, we read, "When strangers sojourn with you in your land, you shall do them no wrong. The strangers who sojourn with you shall be as natives among you, and you should love them as yourselves, because you too were strangers in Egypt." This call to hospitality and divine acknowledgement of human rights of all people should spur us on to discontinue this unjust agreement between ICE and our city. ICE holds do nothing to bring about the kind of city that we want to live in. The city of brotherly and sisterly love can no longer be a part of this unfair and immoral relationship which promotes fear and ruptures the bonds of families and community. Philadelphia is better than this. Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
I have to translate this, so we could do it one way. I think you guys have the English version. We could just have her go in Spanish, so we're going to just shorten it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah? Okay. But I have something to share with you guys.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Juana Aparicio. Soy parte de la comunidad latina que vivimos en Filadelfia. Soy una líder de Juntos. Me dirijo a ustedes con el objetivo de hacer llegar un mensaje que afecta a nuestra comunidad. La idea de esta convocatoria es hacernos escuchar para así poder valer nuestros derechos. Derechos que son atropellados por las injusticias de la sociedad, con la sociedad hispana. Estamos aquí para pedir igualdad, seguridad y protección. La integridad de cada ser humano está en las manos de ustedes, por la cual les pido que ayuden para poder tener una buena calidad de vida, sin atropellos y que nuestros derechos sean escuchados. Soy un ejemplo vivo de abusos que no se hacen justicia. En el 2011 tuve un incidente en la cual no se hizo justicia. Llegó la policía, pero no me ayudó. Fue todo lo contrario. Ustedes tienen en sus manos ese cambio para que las injusticias no pasen más. Somos seres humanos y la comunidad solo viene por un solo propósito, a superarse, a trabajar y a tener una buena vida digna y, claro, a darle algo bueno a nuestros hijos y un porvenir y una mejor educación. En sus manos están cada uno de nuestros sueños y derechos. Si este sentimiento de desconfianza ya existe con la comunidad latina y con la comunidad, pedimos a que también se nos haga escuchar todo lo que tenemos ahora mismo. Tuvimos una junta en donde juntamos la comunidad latina y juntamos a la policía, y más de 150 personas no levantaron la mano porque no tienen la confianza de hacer escuchar lo que les ha pasado. Yo no sé, cuando tuve mi incidente, si el oficial no escuchó porque soy mujer o porque soy latina, Pero al final él no hizo nada, no hizo su trabajo. Él solamente no hizo una... No hizo valer mi reporte.
We're going to have to ask that, because the stenographer who has done this throughout the 3 hours is the same stenographer that's going to have to do the next hearing, and we have to, for humanity's sake, give her a break. So we are going to end testimony.
Can I explain to you what the
Yeah,
images-
because I don't understand
Yeah.
the pictures.
So the Juana story is that she got into an accident and then Juana's story is that she got into an accident and then after the accident was assaulted by the person who hit her. And those are the images of basically all the dental work that she'd had to get ever since that accident. And when the police came, they did not take a report. And so even as people tried to push, they didn't take a report. And what she was summarizing is that we can't even begin to address issues with the local police department, such as those, if we don't start getting fear taken away from the community. She's had $7,000 worth of dental work. And so it's important to just recognize that without this starting, we can't address anything else.
On behalf of every person in the city of Philadelphia, we apologize for your loss. This is horrific, and no one should be brutalized twice, once by the assailant and then the second time by the system. So we apologize on behalf of everyone.
Thank you.
We want to thank everyone for coming out today. All other testimony that you might have can be submitted in writing. I think this is a historic victory, a step in the right direction, and we're not done, because if I heard nothing else, we need to implement this policy into our day-to-day actions as a city. So thank you all. Thank you all. All testimony will be made a part of the record. Thank you very much. This concludes our hearing of the Public Safety Committee.